thinking about starting with another video before I do the whatifalthist video. This is the one. The next ideology isn't what you think. I'm gonna have to check my own audio because I'm going live at 5:30 in the morning. Oh, the audio sounds good. Okay. I'll stream to nobody. I don't care. Somebody here? I should probably announce this on Twitter, where more people follow me. Yeah. If you're watching, say something. Say hi. Tell me where you're from, or don't. Not your dad. Live on YouTube, watching some What If Alt Hist. What is up? What's up, Rue? How you doing? Middle of the day for you, brother. I assume I actually don't know where in Australia you are, but regardless, it's middle of the day. Link below. I'm just sharing this on YouTube real quick. What's up, Jude? Nice to see you. I like that profile picture. 9:15 p.m., which would mean that you are on the East Coast, where most of the cities are, I think, because I'm pretty sure. Now I don't remember. East, West Coast. I'm learning more about Australia. I don't know if you guys know this, but I posted about this one time. My audience isn't mostly American. It's like 45% American, a lot of Canadians, but it is the most disproportionate watchers of my content are Australian. Don't know why that is. Appreciate it though. Love my Aussies. But it's 5:30 on the East Coast in the U.S. and Canada. So I'm gonna assume lots of the Brits, Australians, New Zealand is disproportionate as well, but not a lot of people in New Zealand. I think New Zealand has like the population of my home state, which is one of the smaller ones. Okay, just sharing this link here. I got some other stuff cooking. Got that old research. What's up, Squid? I know you. And I got a cat. We're just going to hang out for a little bit, let people join. Kitty. This is my cat. This is Maggie. Magdalene Teresa, named after Mary Magdalene and Maria Theresa of Austria. Oh, she's tired. I'm going to put her back in her bed. This is where she stays, right here with her big capybara. And I do not make her, there's no shock collar to make her stay there, you know. I'm not going to Hassan this. Although I don't think that would work on a cat anyway. I don't know. I wouldn't know because I've never considered it, because that's wrong. In the UK, hell yeah. Thank you. Where are you from, Squid, if you don't mind? I always ask people. I don't know if you guys remember. I haven't been live in a while, but I always ask people where they're from. I know where Rue's from. Eastern Australia. I am from New England in the United States, where I am. No, I called her, I mean, her real name, Missouri. Missouri, Central Time. Geez, it's 4:30 in the morning where you are. Wait. Oh, right. 10:18 a.m. That makes sense. 5 hours ahead in the UK. And you said UK rather than Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland. So that means you're probably English. My experience tells me that. Colorado. You're up in the middle of the night as well. CO, fantastic. Ooh, that's a nice boat there. Canoe. Almost bedtime after working the graveyard shift. Good Lord. Yeah, well, hang out as long as you'd like and get some sleep, obviously. One thing I want to do, I want to make sure, I'm going to try to do this without headphones on. I don't think my mic will pick it up, but I'll just start this video. I'm just going to test it for a moment. Tell me if the audio is clear.
The way I structure these videos is I release some that are more normie coded, like the ones on current American.
You guys tell me. Someone tell me in the comments there. How's that audio? Now I gotta wait if there's a delay. Drowns me out. Okay. We're gonna get the headphones on. Oh shit. I gotta pay attention because my cat is right behind me. Okay, so when you say it drowns me out, I've got it switched now.
The way I structure these videos is I release some that are more normie coded, like the ones on.
Starts off with normie coded. Good Lord. How's the audio leveling? Is the video a similar volume to my speaking? There should be a way for me to check. I should know by now how to do that, but I don't. I don't know. Gloucestershire. Speak while I play them? Okay.
Current American politics and society, while some more niche ones like the one on Mesoamerican civilization. This video doesn't really fit in.
Ideally, I won't speak very much. Approximately 4 times as loud. That is good to know. I need to change that immediately. So the video is 4 times as loud as me? Which one's louder? Here, I'm going to try to hear this myself. There's going to be an echo for just a minute because I'm going to play this video.
Into an easy category, and you'll see why. In a lot of my videos, I point out a trend which I think...
Oops. I got to turn myself up, I think is what's going on here. Okay. Is that... There's a few places... Okay. How about that? How am I doing there? Gosh, why does it... This is so hard, man. I wish it would be easier. There probably is an easier way to do it, but I don't know it. So, is my audio still clear? Yeah, it's fine. I gotta let people come in. See, it's doing the processing. It won't. I do not like the way my audio sounds, but I'm gonna have to deal with it for right now. But as long as it's still clear, which I think it is, video's louder. The problem is if I turn this up, you know, I just get like, it starts to get distorted at a certain level. But I think that's okay. I think that should be good where it is here. I hope. You guys tell me. But I can't move around too much. Maybe I'll try a different mic. Obviously not right now. This is the mic I got right now. Anyone joining us, let me know where you're from. And we can get started in a moment here, and then people will come in, and we'll be going. See how the Max dude is dealing with the vases? No, what do you mean? Good morning, the great Mammut. Fantastic. Love that. Is that a mammoth or a mastodon? I don't remember how to tell the difference. Maybe I should just mount the mic on my camera. I have it mounted. I have a thing mounted on it. I would show it to you, but I can't because it's on the camera. So I can't do that. Woolly mammoth. Fantastic. Love those. Love those woolly mammoths. Just get some stretches in. I'll be sitting in this chair for a while. Okay, as long as my volume is loud enough, now I can start. I'm gonna check it one more time myself.
Will happen whether or not I want it to. In this video, I've found something that could work, whether or not you guys find this useful.
That sounds good to me. He's trying to force the top tier to be fake, not find out if they are fake. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look into that soon. But I've seen those vases, some of those vases that Matt Bell has in his studio, some of the original ones, and a lot of them have provenance on them. They're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. I mean, they look machined. There's multiple examples from different places. I cannot make heads or tails of those things. I could not explain them. Just before we start, I'm gonna share an image of those. Let me see if these will come up if I search Matt Bell. It's spelled Beal, but it's Bell. Wonderful man, by the way. Absolutely fantastic guy. If you like my stuff, you'll love his podcast. Has incredible people on, and just an absolute stand-up guy. Him and his producer, Ryan. Matt Beal vases. And then we'll start this video here. Oh, here we go. This is what we're talking about here. So some of these are just these are from different places, incredibly well produced, perfect vases. Some of these, like this one B15 here, I'm not sure if it's this one or something like it, but at the bottom, I mean, you could slide a piece of paper under there. It's insane. Yeah, there's so much of this, right? People don't want to know the truth. They come in with a preconceived notion and they're like, these must be fake and I want to prove that they're fake. That's wrong. Flint Dibble said you put a stick connected to another stick in the vase and just spin it around. Flint Dibble is, gosh, I cannot believe he has made himself relevant by continuously having the dumbest takes I've ever seen. I mean, recently... Here, okay. I'm going to share one more thing, and then we'll get going. Go to the Twitter here. Here, I'm going to keep this tab shared just in case I share something wrong. Some of the dumbest takes I've ever seen. Recently, Flynn Dibble posted. Oh, I just went through. Me and Gnosis and Foreman got into it, but then he apologized. We're cool. We're DMing now. Nice guy. You know, sometimes on the internet, people just get, you know, they get a little, they get a little crazy. Oh, I guess I posted about this a few days ago. Wait a minute. No, I went back too far. What's going on here? I can't find it. Okay, forget it. We don't need to talk. Flynn Dibble is just obnoxious, man. I mean, the guy he doesn't produce anything anymore. He stopped doing he hasn't published anything in archaeology in years. Like literally, I think 4 years, if I remember right, since 2022. He gets everything wrong, and he's stayed relevant just with people making fun of him. And often it's not even people that I know. Like random people, I check when someone's talking crap about Flynn Dibble. I check to see if they already follow me or who else they follow. And often it's not. Most of the time they don't follow me, but they still think he sucks. The guy sucks. Oh yeah, Flynn Dibble recently, like Graham Hancock made a post about a guy who recently passed away, and Flynn Dibble quote tweeted it and just talked crap about it. Who does that, man? That's so mean. It's just mean-spirited. Pyramid SAR data. I'm not fully backing it, but no one that criticized the Biondi technique explains why it shouldn't work. They just say it doesn't. I don't know. I haven't looked into it deeply, but that's another one of those examples where people are like, I want this to be fake, so I'm going to show it's not. Yeah, his last paper was Apocalypse Not, right? If you go on Dibble's Google Scholar, you'll see that the last time he actually published an archaeology paper, I think, was 2022. All right, you ready, Maggie? Maggie's short for Magdalene, by the way. Mary Magdalene. She's named after Mary Magdalene, which a random person on Twitter gave me the idea of. And then I gave her the second name of Teresa, not because of Mother Teresa, who I'm not really a fan of, but because of Empress Maria Theresa of Austria from the 17th century, who I am a fan of. Big fan of Maria Theresa. Do you have to? No, you don't have to do. You don't have to do anything. Yeah, I mean, dude, Flint is just a mean-spirited guy. He's a really mean-spirited guy. Sometimes the wrong people get attention, and unfortunately, it's like a car crash. I can't look away. I got to keep. People tell me pretty often, I wish you'd stop talking about him. It's like I only talk about him every few weeks now, but I have to. Khufu, fantastic. That's a great name. The reason I named her Teresa as the second name was because Empress Maria Theresa, she most of her portraits are from when she's older, but even when she was younger, she was very, very blonde. So Maggie's gray. She's a gray cat. So it reminded me of Maria Theresa because in most of her portraits, she's older and has very distinguished white, gray hair. And yeah, I love my cat. Found her at 2 weeks old. She was under my buddy's. She was under my buddy's patio. 2 weeks old, eyes barely open. Mother abandoned her, so I fed her with a bottle for weeks. Spent $400 on enemas because she wouldn't poop. She was constipated, and that can really hurt them. And by hurt them, I mean not be alive anymore. She's good. Imhotep DeSoto, you called her Maggie? Well, I called her Magdalene Teresa, but Maggie is, one syllable instead of Magdalene Teresa. I mean, both of those are 3 syllables. The cat's name is Duchess. Might be a fan of the Aristocats. Fantastic. I love that name, too. Yeah. I was going to get an orange cat one time, and I wanted to name him Vercingetorix. Didn't want to do that. Oh, the tuxedo. Wonderful. All right. Let's get going. I'm going to drop a timestamp. Oh, gosh. I always take too long. Okay. 1850. We're going to start. So the video is The Next Ideology Isn't What You Think by whatifalthist. This is classic. This is real classic. This is what I started on. So in my triumphant return, back to this stuff, we're going to start with whatifalthist. But this video, actually, generally I'm criticizing him quite a bit. But from what I skimmed through it, I got to make sure I can say enough about the video to be able to comment on it. So I might actually be agreeing with him here. So without further ado, further digression, let's get started.
Useful is your choice, but I'm at least offering it as an option. Our society is going through a very brutal period, and I think anyone on every side of the
Okay, just off the bat, our society is going through a very brutal period. I mean, I think that's the wrong word. I'm nitpicking here, but most other times in history were a lot more brutal in the sense of, the West was closed. They were fighting Native Americans until like the 1890s. So maybe it's not the most brutal. No one's really getting scalped today, but it's not great. Cat's called Cat. Fantastic.
Political octagon can agree to that. One of the core issues is that the lack of meaning or any sense of shared reality. In a psychological sense, we live in a world that's like shattered glass. As was foretold in the 19th century by Nietzsche, the death of God.
It was foretold in the prophecy. Okay.
God had consequences that utterly destroyed the old world. Things that we used to take completely for granted are just gone now. There's no shared concept that human life has any value, that there even is a soul, how the universe works, should the nation exist, what reality even is.
Okay. We live in a very materialist society today. I agree with him.
Or what a man and a woman are. We've all
Even the most basic things, it's lost, right? What is a man? What is a woman? Doesn't matter if you can't define them. That was a great documentary.
already gone insane. We're just wealthy enough to mask the consequences. I could pick up on this void intuitively in high school where I realized adults didn't actually understand things they were saying. There was nothing behind the bluff that was our society, and I knew it would come tumbling down sooner or later. Sadly, I turned out to be right. Since then, I've been trying to piece things together to make sense of what will and won't work here. I cross-referenced a variety of things until I found what I'm about to tell you in this video.
I once did a podcast with Balaji comparing alchemy to crypto, in which both are international systems for kings, rogues, and travelers to create an order distinct from governments. Both give you rewards for passing certain difficult tests, have multiple tiers in an encrypted internal system, and have power if you know how to use them. They have their own worldview and are tools to resist centralized power. To speak to that theme, Zcash is unstoppable private money. It's like Bitcoin.
Okay, Zcash has been around for a long time. I don't know.
But encrypted, giving you the freedom to transact without surveillance.
I don't like to skip someone's ads when I'm reacting to their video, but this is Zcash. He's advertising it. I do not necessarily condone it.
And if you're being well, might be the by Zash phone today.
Okay, so his ad is for Zashi.
Using Zashi Wallet. Download Zashi on your mobile phone today.
Okay, and he has there's no affiliate link.
Part 1, a paradox. I think once humanity's power grew great enough and we were no longer dependent on nature, very strange things started to happen.
Okay, we're still dependent on nature, obviously, but I guess the point he's making is that we're kind of separated from nature in quite a way. Okay.
Wait, I don't think that. I know it to be true. The modern world shows such staggering intensity between a society which grew so wealthy it committed suicide, progressives who in their drive for progress collapsed their societies, the atom bomb which both ended war while causing the potential for the end of civilization in a bad morning, the Japanese Empire rising to conquer everything from Alaska to New Guinea overnight, or Hitler emerging from being an unemployed vagrant to Germany's Führer, conquering an empire stretching from the Atlantic to Kazakhstan, which lasted a very mythic 12 years. You wouldn't think the world today was real if we didn't have to live in it. There's some both beautiful and horrible things in it. It's crazy that modern populations see the most remarkable things, but their humanity has been so crushed that they can't appreciate its intensity. There's another paradox there. Life today is so insane by historic standards, but nothing ever happens, and the end of history has already been reached. So we have a worldview that says that the world can't change, which is not going to work. I think the
Okay, wait a minute.
Never happens, and the end of history has already been reached.
I feel like Robert Kiyosaki. Wait, was it Robert Kiyosaki? He does have a weird inflection. That's what it is. He does have a weird inflection. It's almost feminine in a way. The End of History is a book from the 1990s, not Robert Kiyosaki. It's a different Japanese-American guy. Regardless, that guy actually wrote what I thought was an incredible two-part treatise on political order and political decay. But The End of History, it was like this neoliberal book from the 90s, completely wrong, almost obviously wrong, at least in hindsight. I don't know.
So we have a worldview that says that the world can't change, which is not going to work.
I don't think this is still the worldview of today. I think that was the worldview of the past. You can hear the soy. Fantastic, Rue. Absolutely.
I think the reason that paradox is so built into modernity is that broken people are the most paradoxical. I don't really agree with this, but Tolstoy said all happy families are similar and that unhappy people are different. It speaks to a point that broken people have lots of disintegrated stuff which jostles against others. Healthy people have come to terms with their own complexity. Modern society is incredibly immature since it's the first time that humanity has gotten enough power to not be totally reliant on the Earth's bounty. For almost all of our ancestors, they were farmers, herders, hunter-gatherers, or whatever, and those who weren't were people like lords or church or bourgeoisie who were a small minority, totally dependent on...
Okay, the existence of the bourgeoisie, the almost merchant class or something, is an invention of basically the early modern period. There were a few little other things there, you know, but really lords and clergy were kind of it for, besides being herders, farmers. It's over time, like, you know, hunter-gatherers had shamans, basically. Most of them were animists, so they had like shamans and a few other things, but the bourgeoisie is an invention of the high and late Middle Ages to the early modern period of like the 1500s. Yeah, so nothing ever happens. I guess war in Ukraine, genocides across Africa and the Middle East, war in Gaza. Yes, so when he was saying that he said today, but really that was an idea more of the 1990s. That was when it was the end of the Soviet Union, and then you have this neoliberal consensus of this global world order led by the United States and her allies, right? So I don't even think it's really true, but it's okay. We'll look past it. And yes, we are still utterly dependent on the Earth's bounty. We live separated quite a bit from nature, but still, yeah, it is the meme. Nothing ever happens.
The people who were getting food from the land. With the Industrial Revolution, we unlocked enormous power that we had no experience with.
Okay. Whatever. I can't just stop on every statement he says.
It's like giving a child a power tool with no training. It's frankly painful to watch if you're the sort of person who knows where this is going to end. The other thing is that we became so wealthy so fast that people became insulated from the costs of their decisions. People could believe utterly insane things, like that reality didn't exist, or that everyone was equal, since they bore no costs for saying crazy stuff. This is a highly dangerous situation, and the general public is far too comfortable to deal with it in a responsible way. The sheer degree of denial I see in the world today is something I could not have predicted in advance, but I don't blame myself since this is just utter madness. Faced with enormous intractable issues, whether the new technologies we do not yet understand, such as genetic engineering, AI, space, or even older stuff like nuclear weapons or shoving chemicals into everything, we have a public that has zero interest in even thinking about the consequences. Throw on top of this a complete societal and cultural collapse, paralleled either by the earlier fall of civilizations like Rome, Persia, or Greece, or with the horrifying mouse utopia experiments, which, again, the public ignores all of this. This is just the tip of a spear.
He was referencing the mouse experiment. I think he did a video on it. I don't remember the specifics of that.
Which, again, the public ignores all of this. This is just the tip of a spear between the culture or innovation grinding to an utter halt, the rise of external powers like China, an utterly collapsing birth rate, political polarization, the average person sliding into degrading poverty, and the West being controlled by a death cult bent on the destruction of its own civilization.
My God, I forgot about this. You guys remember this? It was this thing that seemed to look like, and it really does look like it's mocking the Last Supper. I was really not happy about this.
Not even giving everything that deserves credit here. Like, haha, credit. The world is going on the most insane financial money printing event ever in human history, or potential climactic issues. As I like to say, this all sounds quite intimidating, because it is. However, life is a shit test, and you have nothing better to do than to deal with it. I know none of you have lives that are more interesting or compelling than fixing this. A lot of you are normies, have financial liabilities or families, but a lot of you don't either. We're going to have to solve this, and if we don't, we will lose absolutely everything. People are too coddled today to realize how bad life can get and how stopping that requires effort and courage. One of my good friends used to work for an agriculture company in India and Thailand and Indonesia, and he said in those countries, there is levels of poverty which we would only see in post-apocalyptic movies. We are going to fix this.
Yeah, that's a thing. The poverty in the rest of the world. Like most of the people watching this, if you're not from the US, Canada, Australia, or the UK, of course, there's a few other examples here, but let me know if you're not from there, because I used to live in Indonesia. The level of poverty in certain places is crazy. If you live in one of those countries, you're essentially, even if you're poor by the standards of those countries, you're still probably in the top 5% globally.
So that our children can live in a better country, because that is the only acceptable outcome we should choose to live with. What I did not expect was that the whole world's reaction to this would just be denial. I didn't think lying to yourself for this long was even in the phone book of options. I assumed over time that the nagging worries would become too intrusive, that the streets would get too dirty and people would get too poor.
Lebanon. You grew up in Lebanon? Your name's Giovanni? Are you Italian? I feel like we've had this conversation before. And am I mispronouncing your name? Unless it was a different Giovanni we talked about, or I talked to. But Lebanon in the past was a decently okay place. I know that's changed.
But psych, no. Welcome to governance by the baby boomers, where issues are not solved, and we all collectively agree to pretend it's still the 20th century, while having none of the positives of that society. You'd think people would realize after a certain point that it's inside their self-interest to defect from the system, but I think a combination of economic misery, being so isolated, beaten down by the left's psychological warfare, and the collective slide into madness, that people don't have the life force to stand upright. However, this will change, and it's a matter of when, not if, since situations like this are innately deeply unstable. We see a sort of stable equilibrium now, since it looks like the world we thought we knew. However, the current world around us is an illusion kept together by too many people being utterly terrified of losing their worldly things. They don't seem to realize that they're going to lose their things anyway if they don't stand up. I partly blame aging, since we are the first old society ever in human history, with America being one of the younger countries in the industrial world. But
yeah, Giovanni, right. And we had the whole conversation about the difference in how Italian Americans and actual Italians pronounce Giovanni for us. Obviously, I live in the Northeast U.S. Everyone here is Irish, Italian, or a mix of Irish and Italian, mostly all the white people, I mean. It's probably better to have the Italian nationality rather than the Lebanese. I think it's a little bit more important, but yeah.
But our average age is still 40. Modernity is weird for both keeping a lot of consistency with earlier eras of history, but also having its own weird new stuff. You can't call which will be which in advance. This world will come crashing down. In fact, it already has in nearly every conceivable way. However, we're too set on maintaining the illusion of the old world. No matter how hard we try, we are not strong enough to stop this, since elites do not in fact control the world. The world has its own plans.
When I say elites do not dominate the world has its own plans. What I mean is that if you read enough history, you find that elites simply cannot wield the power conspiracy theorists would often like them to. When you look inside the largest and most powerful states in history, like Stalin or Hitler, you find internal cluster Fs, which were vastly more inefficient than the American small government regime. American small government, that's a theory of the past. Even the most powerful people on Earth are in fact powerless to the world itself. History is driven by very deep non-human forces like demographics, climate, geology, the collective unconscious, or macroeconomic shifts. These are strong enough to destroy any human regime. I pretty much agree with him. Sorry, my cat. This is going to be an ongoing problem at this time. I need to get this stuff off the desk. I'm sorry, Maggie. It's okay. Yeah. Ow, Maggie, stop. Nobody. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to get my audio interface in the camera controller thing off of the desk eventually, but I can't do that yet. Yeah, the cat Maggie, she is very, very bonded with me because she basically thinks I'm her mom. Because I bottle fed her from 2 weeks old. Basically, as soon as her eyes were open, I was there feeding her, which is great. And she's still a kitten, so she's just hanging out with me. But that made me lose my train of thought. Oh, this wall of text here. I generally agree with him, and I would have to continue speaking for. I could do a whole several hours long talking about this, but there are powerful people in the world. And there are powerful groups of people, but ow, Maggie, why? I gotta clip your nails. Okay, come on now. Jeez. But even though there are powerful people, they don't control, like, the president of the United States is likely the most powerful person in the world, but to put a number on it, maybe they hold 0.5% power in the country. There's judges, there's other people in the executive branch, in the government, senators, whatever. So continue.
And history shows that elites who don't keep up with them get crushed. The current order has nothing holding it together except entropy. Yeah. No one believes.
We are basically all at the mercy of social institutions, of momentum, and of these large shifts in culture.
In the current order, even the elites. No one wants this to be our world. Both
Great comment.
The right and the left hate modernity, and the current regime is incapable of generating anything. Regimes that don't generate things die and get crushed by those who do as part of a natural Darwinistic process. Modernity is so fast that trends which may have taken centuries 2,000 years ago can occur in decades. The reason you haven't realized that the old world is dead is that there has been an active conspiracy on the part of the entire world's social authorities to not show it. This sounds like a centrally orchestrated thing, but rather it's just from the individual self-interest of various world leaders and elites who don't understand the new world or how to deal with it, and so can't make new stories about the current society that don't end up invalidating their own rule. It's a tale as old as
I don't know what he said, but I'm just going to keep going.
Time. Corrupt elites trying to hold on to power at all costs. We try to maintain the outward forms of the comfortable and stable John Hughes Simpson's America of the last century, while for most younger people, their lives have practically nothing in common with it. As I've read more books from the 20th century, it's really struck me how much we've changed since then in so many ways, even with authors in the 1990s. This is a lot for someone my age to hold on their plate. It would be a lie to say that knowing this hasn't eaten at me a little. My eyes are already open and I couldn't close them even if I wanted to. There's not enough space to live in the older version of me who believed these lies as a child for me to grow today. As of now, I just have to watch my world fall apart before my own eyes, and the vast majority of people are too medicated, depressed, and/or are in denial to acknowledge it. I guess this is my fate. There are worse things in the—
Oh my God, he talks. I just have to get past this part because I can't even. It's not even worth me explaining how I feel about this, but it's not substantive in a historical or anthropological way. So I'm just not gonna stop too much to make comments, but we'll just keep watching this.
The big picture, and I'll make sure it works. I have plenty of good stuff. I am from a culture where people speak bluntly, where I'm an Irish guy from Philly, where people don't really have filters back home. So don't...
An Irish guy from Philly? What the fuck's he talking about? What?
I have plenty of good stuff. I am from a culture where people speak bluntly, where I'm an Irish guy from Philly, where people don't really have filters back home. So don't
Giovanni's got it here. Why is he talking about himself like he's the enlightened Buddha? What does he mean, an Irish guy from Philly? What the fuck?
works. I have plenty of good stuff. I am from a culture where people speak bluntly, where I'm an Irish guy from Philly, where people don't really have filters back home. So don't read between the lines too much at what I'm saying here. I started to intuit all.
So we have like our ethnicities in the in America, but I would never describe myself as an Irish guy. I mean, I'm Irish American, but he just described himself as an Irish guy. That's weird. We don't do that generally. What the hell?
Don't read between the lines too much at what I'm saying here. I started to intuit all of these things as a teenager. As I said before, I'm from Philly, which is probably the most downwardly mobile city in America over the last century. So a lot of these conclusions were utterly unavoidable.
What about Detroit? What? What? Philadelphia, but this is no longer the country's poorest big city. He said downwardly mobile, but this is saying that it's improving. It's the opposite of what he said. God, we just got to get past this. I just got to let it happen.
Over the last century. So a lot of these conclusions were utterly unavoidable. However, I was intimidated by these things. I'm not anymore. The reason is that as a teen, I could tell adults didn't know what they were really saying about the world.
Okay. When you're a teenager, the adults that you're interacting with are high school teachers. They're the dumbest, not the dumbest of adults, but they're some of the dumber adults in general, on average. Obviously, there's plenty of great, smart ones, but yeah, this is the poor me section. He does this. He includes, to me, too much personal stuff. I'll add in personal stuff sometimes, but generally it's as part of a larger point. It's not, yeah. And I don't hate this guy. I don't think he's a bad guy. He has a lot of bad takes that allow me to comment on a lot of things, but I don't know.
The things they said felt empty and banal, like styrofoam. Real things are messy and living.
He's not like the other right-wing internet guys. Okay.
Nihilism is killing us. Growing up, my father would tell me about how the most core causal variable for the issues I saw in the world around me was the death of God. My father said that without a shared sense of God or meaning, that people did not have the reason to live. He said that Marxism was the envious who were trying to tear down the world to take revenge for the loss of heaven or an afterlife. That the reason the West was too weak to either have an effective foreign policy or let children play outside is that without God, there was no reason to face suffering or believe in yourself. He said that the story of the 20th century was when our human sciences did not progress as fast as our technological sciences, which created evil regimes based off pseudoscience. That the human sciences of the 20th century were just stuff we made up, and instead we would have to pull on religion or pre-modern social ideas to make a correct system. This is where I started intellectually. I spent years trying to figure out how the world really worked.
Dude, we're 15 minutes into the video. Come on, just talk about this stuff. I don't know how old. He's like 23 or something. Come on, man. Have some humility.
Compared the different philosophies of the world from both the pre-modern and modern eras. I then did my own reading and studied the scientific or intellectual work we have now to run a sort of reality filter on which philosophies and worldviews aligned with both reality and the functionality of a human society the most. I continually found that Marxists were the most obnoxious liars, and our society had been way too soft on them. Secondly, that pre-modern societies often understood highly complex and deep things, but explained them in a format that was totally unrelatable to modern people, or with religions and myths, which left out very important sort of tools for modern people to understand them, or things we know now. However, I found something that could work. I found a corpus of ideas which can resolve all of the major issues with what I've articulated here. Let me show them to you. Part 2. Which worldview is accurate? The video I most recently made was about how the vast majority of our worldview today is inaccurate. That on some level, every academic discipline had been colored by incorrect framings to a degree in which you can't trust our entire worldview. That's a very deep and heavy topic, which I won't get as much into this video. However, that's a framework you are going to need to understand this video. It also plays into what I just said, that the current mental and worldview framework we have for the world is not able to deal with the dangerous realities of life today. There's a sort of disjoint here in trying to cross-reference which theories of the world can explain the world today. Modernist thinkers have a tendency to be really bad at understanding systems thinking, human nature, or the big picture. This is a way bigger issue than a lot of you probably realize, since those things inform every element of how you perceive the world. For example, communism was seen as a moral evil for the vast majority of human history, since they had a better comprehension of human nature, that humans have souls pointed towards heaven and their own animal motivations. This makes Marxism slavery to the state, not seen as empowering a world without conflict or poverty, which it does not actually achieve. But
I don't think that Marxists view communism as slavery to the state, but yeah, that's his argument. And no comment. I guess I mostly agree, but ultimately no comment.
Rather the crushing of human soul and character. Alternately, pre-modern thinkers would see stuff like cold rationalism or social engineering as evil, since neither respected the interconnected and divine nature of reality itself, where you can't just rip reality up without thinking you're going to generate more issues than you solve. This is what pre-modern thinkers were really good at and moderns are terrible at. Modern people are way better at knowing the how and very bad at knowing the why or should. Just look at wokeness, where the left so blindly pushed for racial stats for various industries to match their quotas. This leaves out very important details like how cultures and genetics are actually quite different, where you'll see on top of that, a radical neutering of innovation, which is largely done by white men, that using national racial stats over America is just utter madness, given how much...
Okay. Latins. Hispanic people are not Latins. He didn't make this map. That's what it says behind me. Any form of government is slavery to the state. You are correct. And also, taxes are not meant to be... Taxes originated not with citizens paying them, but as ritualized plunder. That's where taxes come from. Their taxes are paid by conquered people, not by citizens, regardless, at least traditionally. That's not happening today, but, you know...
America's racial demographics fluctuate by region, and that's leaving out a dozen other very important variables they did not, in fact, consider. This is just one example of one of modernity's logical fallacies, but there are very many. However, at the same time, there's a sort of unbridgeable gulf between ancient wisdom and modern science. For a brief example, which will make the rest of the video more comprehensible, alchemy has a very distinct grammar for how the world works. If you don't know the grammar, alchemy comes across as gibberish. However, if you do, it's absolutely brilliant. For example, in alchemy, there are 4 states: albedo, rubedo, nigredo, or citrinitas. For examples in history, albedo is a period of high intellectual depth and cultivation. Examples would include classical Athens, 18th century France, or the Italian Renaissance. The white or albedo must come out of chaos and disorder, though, which all of these historic periods did, and it must evolve into yellow or citrinitas. This is when a sort of idea of a society evolves into material form, or how those intellectual principles from those breakthroughs were applied across the whole world. This is a stage of decadence where these ideas mix with the world and get watered down. That would be the Hellenistic period, modernity, or Baroque decadence, which followed all of those time periods. However, decadence is necessary to this process since it burns away the unnecessary parts of the older society and allows these ideas to sink in with the society. Negredo, get your laughs out now, guys. This isn't about black people, is a term for the raw darkness and horror of your worst points. In alchemy, suffering is required to burn away weakness. You can see this is totally true in that Darwinism is built off survival of the fittest. Ancient historians like Herodotus or Ibn Khaldun agreed that weakness destroyed nations, and science, rule of law, capitalism, or democracy are so valuable since they create—
Wait a minute. Ancient philosophers weren't talking about capitalism. That's like Adam Smith. That doesn't come around for like 1,000 years. I mean, from the classical period, more like 2,000, at least to start. Whatever.
Internal rules to mediate productive competition. Negredo is the least favorite, but it's also necessary to keep things real, and good things only come out of how suffering makes people stronger. Think of how the vast majority of scientific innovations are from war. This is a principle that people in modernity really have a hard time stomaching since we live in such comfortable times. We don't want to believe that suffering is necessary to growth. Finally is Rubedo, which is the lion's roar of red. This is the period when history just explodes, like how Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan broke entire continents under their will, the French Revolution exploding across Europe, or the Spanish bloodily taking down 2 continents. This is necessary, but again, modernity doesn't like this, since genuine innovation is always disruptive. It's so spoiled and immature of us to hate on the age of European exploration, industrialization, and colonialism, since we all live in the world they made. The only reason we have the science, hygiene, food, technology, or often countries or continents that we do is because of the Rubedo of that era. We're now sliding into yellow or black so that we can have another era of white or red. Finally, you have the blue, which I haven't studied as much, but I believe is the creative font of new innovation that comes from the shadows or the night. Think of how the European Dark Ages after the fall of Rome set the foundations for the most successful civilization in history, or how colonial America did the same for our nation. How the forests and myths of ancient Greece set the foundations for the albedo of their classical civilization and the rubedo of Alexander. The thing is that I applied this framework to history, since that's my area of study, but you could do this for any other discipline. Keep in mind, alchemy was in a lot of ways the origin of science, as we'll talk about later in this video, where every major thinker and the foundation of modern science had some background in alchemy. Alchemy exists in parallel to science, in that it's a set of ways to look at symptoms which mirror across realms of existence. So you could use these colors to look at human nature, psychology, smelting in a smithy, which is where alchemy started, for spirituality, history, evolution, or other disciplines. An interesting element of the psychology of alchemy is when you're talking about these colors, you're breaking out of the idea that this trauma is caused by your parents or this is caused by your employer. You're just saying you are in Negredo and you are...
Does anybody know what the hell he's talking about? Like, I want to say things, but I don't know what he's talking about. Pattern recognition? Okay. Am I just thinking too deeply about this?
Suffering, you should deal with it. And I see these as useful tools which you can apply to a wide variety of disciplines as a certain type of lens, but not the sole lens you should use. I see this video as a challenge. If it kind of comes off strange, you don't like it, the reason is I'm trying to get to the edges of what I can do with my current skill level to see if it works. One of the tests here is, can I get a modernist audience to respect something which their neurology will absolutely not like? We don't think about this, but the way modern societies wire their neurology is in fact not rational or scientific. Science is just a testing method, and you don't need the machine-like aesthetic or to apply science as the sole ruling principle of your society. We agreed to that since it fit a certain vibe, not because it actually made rational sense, since no major philosopher ever argued for this, as I explain in this text wall. If I fail this test, oh well, things happen sometimes. The way I think, and I believe this is valuable to articulate since it's alien to a lot of people, is that I say things as a way to think out the implications of it in a process of curiosity with my audience. I put on various perspectives or intellectual masks, try them on, and if they stick, I keep them. This is how I see stuff like this. The reason I state this is that people seem to get very worked up about intellectual or social ideas as they form their identity, but this totally removes thinking about them critically and sort of fossilizes people's worldviews. Once you fossilize a worldview, it's going to end up being wrong because it won't be able to adjust to the world. I try to keep a core set of moral values I hold true to and then adapt my worldview by context or whatever new data I pull in tells me. I am frequently wrong and will happily admit when I am. That being said, I think there's something profoundly valuable in the pre-industrial world's perception. I think not even being interested in studying any of the elements for how people in earlier societies understood the world is insanely arrogant and deranged for modernity even to try this. Any of the elements for how people in earlier societies understood the world is insanely arrogant and deranged for modernity even to try this.
Okay.
It's pretty insane that we have total confidence on a 200-year trajectory since the French Revolution, which has been marred by constant
I really, really don't like the fake laugh that he does when he's talking sometimes.
wars and disturbances, one where the scientific consensus on a variety of topics changes every generation, and where social authorities are totally unwilling to admit fault. At the same time, where they push ideas which are overtly wrong, like that men and women are the same, or that you can print infinite money with no consequences, and having a coherent functioning society.
Like, I think people understand that this is the wrong way to view things. Like, you know, he was talking at the beginning of the video about how nobody has that much power. We're at the mercy of these larger shifts in culture, and he didn't say this explicitly, I think, but of the social institutions. So we are at the mercy of those, but it's not like people. I think most people that think about it know that it's a bad idea to print infinite money, like just print more and more and more money. Like, I think people realize that's a bad thing. It's just that there are incentives at play where it's better for certain people benefit from it, and they don't care about the negatives because those negatives are externalized. They are externalities that are externalized to other people, and it benefits, you know, their network and themselves.
Society is racism. Looking to the past to figure out principles is just common sense. And the question is which principles from the past fit with our current context and appear to match up with the trustworthy scientific data we have now. I need you to watch this video until the end, although I know it's long, before you judge, since I think there will be an immediate knee-jerk no reaction. But I've spent years trying to translate alchemical principles into modern scientific terminology, and it does actually work. Surprising. If you actually understand what alchemy is trying to convey behind all the obtuse symbols and weird language, you'll find it has a pre-established moral...
Well, I don't... Okay, I guess it's the whole point of the video, but I don't understand why alchemy is the thing that he's concentrated on. It feels like he's trying to force this metaphor. But let's see. The video, there's another hour in the video, so we'll see.
code and worldview, which already knows how to handle the enormous power of modern technology that we have now, as well as how to cultivate a society which is responsible enough to handle it. The good news is that all of these questions we worry about now have already been thought through for thousands of years. I have lots of friends in the tech industry, and it's funny they'll mention some problem, and so often the alchemists already wrote on that, and I can just immediately tell them what the alchemical teaching is. I've checked this for a while, and it's consistently held up. That since the philosophy of alchemy is a question of how to attain greater and greater amounts of power without growing corrupted. This was an issue philosophers have been aware of for millennia. You know, man, sometimes the sorcery's just too strong, and you gotta roll with that. Another very valuable thing is that the alchemical worldview is not in contradiction with Christianity at all. Every major Christian church has endorsed it and funded it at one point or another. The Catholic Church funded research on the topic, and in the 16th century, every major royal court in Europe hired alchemists. The philosophy of alchemy influenced the early church, with the fathers of the church like St. Augustine or Origen not being totally opposed, seeing the founder of this tradition, Hermes Trismegistus.
Okay, so now he's sharing something with me that I did not know that I find pretty interesting, and I appreciate that. Cool.
As a precursor to Christ and a pagan figure in the Christian tradition, like Seneca, Plato, or Aristotle. Hermeticism, or another name for the philosophy of alchemy, has already had an enormous impact on Western history between the Italian Renaissance, which it heavily inspired, the founding fathers that were deeply steeped in it, as were almost all of the founders of science. We're going to talk about this more so at the end of the video.
Founders of science.
The reason we don't hear about it is since this stuff...
Who founded science? It's not like the New England Patriots. What's going on here? Who founded science? What are you talking about?
Is coded in a certain way that it's not generally accessible, and it was heavily concentrated among the upper classes or intellectuals who were the people making leadership decisions, but didn't percolate through the general public, so it didn't transfer to democracy very easily. I will say that this tradition is deeply complex. I've kind of stumbled into it, and after reading like 50 books on mysticism, I still don't consider myself a master. I learned something
I hope not. You're not a master of anything. You're 23 years old. What are you talking about?
new every time I open a book on this topic, and my skills here aren't anywhere as good as what they are in history or anthropology. However, I know practically no one else knows anything on these topics, so I'm going to go ahead.
Okay, there are many people online who are not super popular who talk very deeply about mysticism, like Scott Mannion, who came on my show. So just because you don't know about them doesn't mean they're not there. And they know a lot more than this guy and me. Wasn't it Fauci who invented science? Absolutely. Yes. No one else knows what I know. God, the self-importance, man. Okay.
Another element is that alchemy deals with how to advance on a consciousness level as your material conditions improve, which means they are writing for people at different tiers of consciousness at once. If you're not aware enough to understand something in alchemy, that's on purpose, since that information is only meant to be known by someone who is aware enough to take it. It's overly complex and weird on purpose for that reason.
Right. There's a word for this. There's a word for this in cultural, or in the anthropology of religion. What's the word? Excuse me. Gosh, what's the word? What is it? I'm forgetting. Somebody in the comments is going to know the word for something that is like secret knowledge that most people don't know and that you need to understand or recognize. Jeez.
If you don't like it, that's fine. It's not made for most people.
Yeah, Squid, that's what I thought too. Esoteric, thank you. Adrenochromia, hilarious name, thank you very much. Yes, esotericism, thank you, Giovanni, absolutely. Masonic, no, I was thinking esoteric, but Masonic knowledge would be an example of esoteric knowledge.
It's designed to be the exact
occult is
opposite
close,
of convenient or comprehensible, which makes it...
Occult knowledge includes a lot of esotericism.
utterly incomprehensible to the modern mind. Part 3, the Hermetic Worldview. The reason I think that alchemy, alternately called the Hermetica, can explain the scientific world very well is that it allows you to switch your framing on how the world works by perceiving the material realities of science through a different worldview where they actually make sense inside a bigger frame. There's two ways that I would recommend people who are trying to get into the Hermetica start. One is with the Kabbalion, or a guide written on the underlying implicit principles of Hermeticism. Alongside, there's a lot of good secondary sources on the topic, which do a much better job of explaining how the general worldview works, which is what I've found the most valuable. The top 5 I'd recommend are The Secret History of the World.
Dude, I do not know what his overall premise is, and we're a third into the video. This might have been a mistake for me to do, but we're committed. We're going through it.
Forbidden Universe, The Hermetic Link, The Hermetica and Creative Alchemy, alongside Eliada's book on alchemy. If you want to understand how these fit into a broader...
Does this seem very disjointed to anyone else? Whatever.
Modern worldview, read Ken Wilber's book, Sex, Ecology, and Spirituality, alongside Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning. Then there's the Corpus Hermeticum, Asclepius, and the Emerald Tablet, which are other really useful primary sources on this topic. All of those primary sources are less than 400 pages total, so it's not a big deal to read all. A point Eliada makes is that the Hermetica, or all forms of alchemy, which you also have in China or India, come from smelting in furnaces and iron working. These were ideas that were first developed with blacksmiths trying to understand the miracle of metal working. A lot of this mutated into cooking or chemistry, where the Hermetica loves symbolism of let him cook or front and back burner. The hammer is the masculine element, the iron is the feminine. The final produced good is the synthesis. The way Hermetics frame this is by working through metals to reach gold. These were symbolic understandings of the gold, so gold was spiritual enlightenment. However, this is also so philosophically complicated and incestuous that you should read this textual to understand it better. The Philosopher's Stone was a symbol for something in the far future that was powerful enough to understand all things and transmute one materia to another by being so advanced. The stone was not actually a stone, but more so a waxy tablet that you should see as some advanced piece of technology in the far future that they were aiming towards over the course of centuries. This is the weirdest intro into Hermeticism, and I promise I can explain why this framework exists in a sane way going forward. This is a funny way of phrasing it, but a way to see the Hermetica is much like communism or some insane anime fandom. For example, I've never watched the One Piece show since I see the
Yeah, so I want to take a moment for this comment. I mean no disrespect to this guy, but he doesn't sound like someone who has a mind for scientific or philosophical understanding. He's getting there, though, might need more exercise of the mind. So he's been popular. Whatifalthist, Rudyard, I think his name is. He's been popular on YouTube for a very, very long time. Since he was, for years and years, since he was probably 18 or 19, he's been popular. And I think that almost has stifled his growth because he started sharing his ideas at the point when he wasn't, he hadn't done enough, he hadn't studied enough for most people to be able to share it, I guess. I mean, it's like he was too young. He hasn't had enough life experience and enough time to learn these things. He's clearly well-read, but I think he got, information. He started sharing things too quickly. It's like at the time when I started creating Anthropology, what he's talking about is even more big picture. For me, I started making content about history and anthropology. Even I would say that I was still pretty young when I started doing this at 28 years old, after I was a Marine and then got degrees in history and anthropology, got certified to teach, worked in public history, volunteered doing archaeology. Like I had years and years and years of experience and reading and learning stuff to talk about even more niche topics, whereas he's trying to tackle these big, big questions without having the life experience to do it. And I think it makes him come across as, you know, as talking out of his ass a little bit, because there'd be no way for him to have had the life experience to be able to talk about these things to other people. And I know that for me, I don't know how old everybody is in the comments, besides I know how old Rue is, who's older, but my average viewer is, I think, 10 to 15 years older than me. My average viewer is in around 40 years old. My biggest demographic is like 35 to 44, I think. So to anybody older, even as old as me, I'm 31, it just comes across as childish almost. Okay, but I want to talk about the ideas, not him, but it is, you know, it's getting kind of meta. It is interesting. He makes the same mistake as the rump archaeos. He makes assumptions and presents them as facts. Yes, he does that a lot. No, I mean, you're not an oldie. You know, I don't want to dox how old Rue is. He can share if he'd like to, but most of the people are, if you're in your late 30s to 40s, you're more of the average, the median, at least, viewer of mine. He got famous because he hard predicted the Civil War with the left and general collapse. He had enough intellectual ammo he got from Kurt Doolittle to make interesting long-form videos. Not anymore. Shout out to the fossils in the chat. 52. Yeah, if you're 52, you're closer to the average. Yeah. Rue, all you guys are puppies.
1,000 episodes or whatever, I think, Jesus, I don't have enough free time for this. Keep in mind that nerds in the pre-modern world needed hobbies too. The Hermetica is designed to be coded only for the types of people who are mature enough for it, and there are multiple entry points you can choose. There is a truly huge amount of Hermetic lore, and you can start in a variety of ways. When you encounter another person who has studied the Hermetica, you'll almost always find that they're...
Hey, shout out to you, Giovanni, for being 24, being very young for my chat, and hanging out and enjoying this stuff. That's you are an old soul, likely as I am also an old soul and always have been. Yeah.
Their study of the topic is coded for their own personal experience, and so you'll share your journey. This is a structured part of the Hermetic process, where it's supposed to be tailored to you as an individual. It's an open source toolkit which you can use for a variety of things. It builds your identity around you as you use these tools to further your life journey to reach your destiny. It's less valuable to see it as a religion like the Abrahamics than it is a philosophy with lots of tools you can use to understand the world. You can pick or choose tools by context. However, this is also why I never think the Hermetica can or should be a society's majority religion, since it isn't made to serve the needs of ordinary people or a society. You see, most religions operate like a sort of psychic force field for a society. Christianity, Hinduism, or Islam create psychological worlds which create space for entire civilizations.
Gosh, I like the sheer audacity to make broad, you know, claims about religions. Christendom, like he has, like Christendom, yeah. This is, where do I even start? I mean, like, Islam is practiced so differently in Morocco as it is in Indonesia, as it is in Iran. Christianity is very different. Like, Utah Christianity, you got Mormonism and the Catholics in Latin America and dispensationalists in freaking, what's the word, in the South that they have, and the Catholics in New England, and oh my God.
Whatever. To develop. These create worldviews which can't really interface with others, and thus have rules which often end up collapsing into totalitarianism, since their rules can't update in all contexts.
Good
What the Hermetica is designed to be is a toolkit for those who wander outside those religious force fields. That's why it's called the belief system of travelers, rogues, and kings. It's for the self-employed or those who exist outside normal structures, since either the king must deal above his nation in order to fight others and deal with international diplomacy, or the traveler who must wander between worlds. You can see why I'm sort of comparing it to communism as a vaguely secular ideology, which you can use as a mental framework to understand the world, but doesn't operate as a traditional religion. This provides a very valuable service in a globalized economy where the old civilizations can't fully adapt to a new world. In the same way that at the time of Herodotus, religion declined since the Greeks could see the gods of many other nations, which made it hard to believe in their own, religions or cultures today are forced to cooperate against both the globalized world and the changes with new science and technology. However, religion is a society's worldview or operating system, and so it must exist, and not doing so will kill a society. What the Hermetica and other forms of alchemy, like the Indian or Taoist, do is make a list of tools which can allow the cross-section of science and religion, so you can take off certain moral values based on context or good sense. The Hermetica is difficult to categorize since it was made before modern people established clear principles on what constituted certain academic disciplines. Hermeticism is a way of looking at the world holistically.
You missed nothing.
And then seeing power.
Okay, so we're gonna watch the rest of this video, and then we're gonna watch a 20-minute video where a guy talks to Lex Friedman about some uncontacted tribes. That's gonna be way better than this, but we're going through it. We're doing it. Okay, this dude is far too broad. I agree. He talks. He makes these broad, sweeping claims about people and groups and ideas, takes them as true, and then builds on that with more broad things. It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, but it made him popular. I'll give him that. It made him popular. Makes a life on YouTube. Good for him. He's more popular than me.
Patterns across disciplines. There were hermetic styles of magic, astrology, physics, biology, art, politics, religion, philosophy, and so many other things, given the Hermetica as a system. It's not a given thing. This makes it difficult for modern people, but it also makes it very useful in classic fashion, where often the thing you don't want is what you actually need. Modern people need logical systems like the Hermetica so that we can logic our way out of our own civilizational autism, schizophrenia, or mental illness back into having a meaning.
Modernity has an enormous amount of psychological illnesses. Carl Jung was correct when he predicted that as people stopped dealing with the threat of famine or physical disease, that psychological or spiritual illnesses would start destroying society instead. Okay, but to say that and then to be talking about schizophrenia, autism, or I'm sorry, anxiety, sure, that is, but schizophrenia also is rare in the pre-modern world. No, it wasn't like schizophrenia. What we describe as schizophrenia was dealt with differently in prior cultures. It was dealt with differently. Like a lot of the shamans in early animistic cultures, a lot of them were what we would call today schizophrenics. It's a different way of viewing the world, and they had a cultural way of giving people a place in their society who experience those things. Whereas today, we just diagnose people and try to fix them, trying to force them into the mold of society. The mold of a more median average person, and that just doesn't work. So, yes.
Meaningful, profound worldview like our ancestors did. The Hermetica is how you explain religion to smart intellectual people. The Hermetica isn't like other girls or other religions in that it's not a list of dogma, but rather a framework for how to evolve as a person or a thing and build your own morality based on context. The way to see it is less than competing with Christianity or other world religions, rather worldviews like Marxism. The Hermetica is the direct inverse of Marxism, in which both are worldviews about how things should evolve.
Yo, yeah, let's talk about that. He's my favorite YouTuber. I'm a fan as well, to be clear. I know I criticize him, but I like the guy. I don't think he's a bad person. He took it down, but like a year ago, and I did not comment on this. I was going to actually do a live where I watched it, and there was a copy kept, but out of respect for him, I did not do a live on it after he took it down himself. I didn't want to then do that. But yeah, he uploaded like a 9-hour 3-part video full of lies, and he said they were lies later, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a whole thing, but that was funny. Like Mayans and were Jaguar people or people with Down syndrome. They were revered and had a special place in society. I love the Mayans. I believe you that that's true. I'm not familiar with their understanding of it, but yes. Today we develop a drug, then invent a condition to sell it. Yes, our incentive system, the pharmaceutical industry, especially in the United States, where if you are watching anything with advertisements on it, you will get advertisements for pharmaceutical drugs. And there's an incentive to sell those and to ask your doctor. And no matter how many times I watch it, and it's been normal my entire life, it never becomes normal. For those that are not American, which I think is most people in the chat right now, it's not normal. It's not cool. It's weird every single time I see one. And whenever I'm watching something with ads, it's there. I'm curious how much was true in his autobiography. I mean, some of it was definitely fake. I remember some of the weirder, I don't remember the specifics, but there was a lot of really weird stuff that just did not seem true. And he said it was a social experiment, a whole thing, whatever. I mean, whatever. You got to take risks. You got to go out there, you know?
Over the course of time, where Marx's idea of the historic dialectic actually stems from the Hermetica, for reasons explained in this text wall through Hegel. The Hermetica establishes a framework for how to find chaos, subdue or master it, and then turn it into your property, and in the...
Oh, yeah, that was one of the things. His mother made him R-word his sister. I mean, I think that was the definite reason that was in there that made me be like, yeah, I definitely am not going to react to this once he took it down. I can't. It's a lot. Yeah.
Process grow as a person. When communism values slavery, immaturity, and machine-like thinking, the Hermetica values freedom, maturity, human consciousness, and manhood. In our current worldview, Marxism has de facto filled the frame of our global worldview, in that the first reaction to a globalized world of many religions was to negate all of them and default onto the lowest trust and most cynical worldview possible as a way to not have to maintain the global commons, which would be quite difficult. What this means is that Christians today, without even realizing it, have been operating within a Marxist frame, since they've made the decision that pushing social justice, killing the West, and Marxist oppression narratives trumps actually following the Bible for lots of Western churches. People really underestimate how Marxism has colored our entire worldview, and it goes through academia, value systems, sexual relations, human nature, and a variety of things. What I'm recommending here is using the Hermetica to replace the things Marxism does in our current society, which would then allow the major world religions to flower. Keep in mind that Marxism teaches that the spiritual simply does not exist, that the divine spark does not exist in humans, that humans don't have a soul, that the chaos God uses to test humanity should be destroyed. The major world religions cannot survive in a Marxist frame, which is a big reason why global religiosity is collapsing.
Okay, there are certain levels of Marxist framing in a lot of academia, including anthropology.
So precipitously. However, in the Hermetica, you have an open source toolkit which creates a framework for different world religions to interface with the divine. So you've suddenly opened up global cultures to be able to talk to God again. Hermeticism allows everyone to access the tree of human life and consciousness. I can't overstate how easy and how important a historic shift this would be. We would just have to do it. To return to topic as a way to sort of go through the Hermetic principles, let's go through the Kabbalions' principles to understand the topic more deeply. You have mentalism, or that the universe is a dream by God, correspondence, or as above, so below, vibration, that nothing stays the same, polarity, or that everything which exists also has its opposite, rhythm, or that everything flows in cycles, cause and effect, which is every cause has an effect, and gender, which is that everything has masculine or feminine principles. These are fairly bare bones, but these are all very necessary things you need to understand the world, which modernity does not have. They provide frameworks for things we don't think about today, but we need to know about. Another really interesting Hermetic principle, which I find quite valuable, is microcosmos equals macrocosmos. And what that means is that large, very complex things have small symbolic forms which guide the larger thing. As an example, I've spoken about in previous videos how society's family structures dictate their political structures through creating intuitive notions of it.
I actually really liked that video. I don't know if we did a live on it. I think we did, but I liked it a lot. It was it wasn't as broad as this type of thing that he's doing. It's so broad.
How power should be used. So if you change society's family structure, you're also going to change their political structure. Similarly, nations or religions use certain symbols like capitals or religious symbolism, where if you attack the Vatican, you're attacking the entire global Catholic Church.
Thank you, Squid. I appreciate it. Yep. This has been a successful live stream. I got $2. By the way, nobody has to donate. I appreciate it if you do. I'm just here. I appreciate you guys being here in general. Like the video, though. I require you like the video. Please.
Washington, D.C. is a microcosmos of America, where these leaders in rooms are making decisions which impact the entirety of humanity. So the course of human history exists in a microcosmic form, being determined in negotiating rooms by world leadership. Microcosmos versus macrocosmos also explains a lot of religious symbolism, where you have to think to yourself, how come a cross is symbolic for an entire religion, or a half moon for another religion? Another example of Hermetic principles that are highly useful is the polarity of the masculine and feminine, which is very real to society, but is something that people just ignore. Men and women need different things out of life, but we can't admit that. The reason social engineering doesn't work...
Speak for yourself. I can admit that. I don't care if it makes me sexist. Men and women are different. Have a great day. Good luck getting through this video. Look, nothing will be as difficult to get through as the Zahi Hawass video on Joe Rogan. Oh my God.
Is that the world is constantly moving and operating in rhythms, which means that overly rigid structures can't accurately model reality. If you look enough at physics or just human life in general, you find that they do generally follow principles like this. For example, over history, people tend to not operate rationally, but do the opposite of the recent trend. The enormous wealth and growth of the Industrial Revolution created populations which had suicidal misery, since all that wealth needed psychic balance. The French Revolution was a reaction to the failings of the aristocratic revolution, Romanticism to the over-rigidity of the Enlightenment. Meanwhile, in Britain, where the elites were less repressive than France, there was no equivalent reaction like the French Revolution. Once you create a very stark polarity, like the Roman or Chinese empires, you also create barbarians like the Germans or Mongols who become strong enough.
You hear that again?
You create a very stark polarity, like the Roman or Chinese empires. You also create barbarians like the Germans or Mongols.
Yeah. People define themselves based on what they are, but that also means defining yourself against another group that is the other. And that can exacerbate the differences between groups of people that come in contact. You see this a lot. It's obvious with the Roman Empire versus the German barbarians and other types of barbarians. But even in, for example, let's take Papua New Guinea or New Guinea, the island. People there, different hunter-gatherer groups, very different people, very, very different cultures of even related-ish people across like a few miles. Like there's one group, and then next to them is another group. One group might be ritualistic cannibals and be very violent. The other group might be a lot more pacifist, and they define themselves based on their interactions with each other and based on what the others are like and what they are. That makes
Mongols
sense.
who become strong enough to destroy them.
Okay, wait a minute. Mongols? Hold up.
Like the Roman or Chinese empires, you also create barbarians like the Germans or Mongols who become strong enough to destroy them. You see anti-civilization develop in polarity to civilization.
What? Okay, anti-civilization develop. No, that's just what they were, though, in this case. Like, it's... What? Anti-civilization develop? No, the only reason they become anti-civilization is because of the existence of civilization. Like, they weren't anti-civilization, they were just people. And then once you have civilization as a framework, then people that aren't like that you then view as anti-civilization. It's not like they were civilized and then they become anti-civilization. By the way, Giovanni, I took a note of predictive history. I'll take a look.
The core idea which modern people will have the hardest time comprehending here is the concept that the whole world is mental. Explaining all of this would be a distinct video in its own right, which would take a while as a rabbit hole, but there is physics evidence which has become stronger over time that reality does indeed not exist without consciousness. The big physics journals say that reality is not locally real, or it does not exist distinct from our perception of it, which is really trippy for modern people. Alternately, the research that our perception of particles colors their actual composition. Some people say that this means we're in a simulation, others that God runs the universe, but both are functionally the same once you take away the labels. Beyond this, the research we found pretty consistently that plants know what you're thinking about, and their vital statistics change around the thoughts of the humans around them. Another element the Hermetica does really well here is its ability to balance how bad modern people are at understanding chaos or the unknown. Modernity likes to say that anything we can't measure scientifically doesn't exist. However, the universe is infinitely large, and so that opens you up to a very dangerous place where you just use things that you can measure as a way to live in denial about things you don't want to know about. This is how our elite backs insane stuff, and realistically, we just need to have another filter for common sense and things we've known for thousands of years to balance simply science as our society's dominant moral code. The Hermetica operates by archetypes, like the masculine and the feminine, chaos and order, or higher and lower forms. Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning was super groundbreaking in that he used a holistic look at the human condition between neurology, history, mythology, art, or anthropology to say that these archetypes do in fact totally exist, and just because we can't see them in the lab doesn't mean they're not valid. Humans very much do process chaos and build our lives to avoid it. Chaos is real. Evil is real if you've had to live through it. Saying otherwise is just childishly keeping your fingers in your ears and going la la la. If evil and chaos must exist, by definition, so must good and order. Once you acknowledge that these archetypes can manifest over reality, you are quite close to saying that God exists. For an example of Hermetic archetypes, we've spoken before about the masculine and the feminine. The masculine is doing and the feminine is being. For a great example of this, let's look at the US currency and state buildings, which were built by Hermetics during the American Revolution. In the National Mall, you have the obelisk, which was taken from an Egyptian concept for the earth penis impregnating the sky. The Hermetica is from Egypt. Then you have the National Mall, or the feminine. On the $1 bill is the pyramid and the circle, which is upward or masculine spiritual momentum, and the circle, or feminine downward spiritual momentum. This is the yin and yang concept which exists in all cultures. Men are attractive for their ability to do and their energy, women for their being and calmness. When you screw this up, people just stop mating.
Dude, what the hell is he talking about? What is he talking about? Am I crazy? Why am I not making videos like this? I want 736,000. Well, that's probably more than I want, to be honest. But that's a lot. Oh, my God.
You can see in our current society. Without following these Hermetic principles intuitively, a society cannot procreate. However, inside the Hermetica is a very useful concept that we are all building reality together. This doesn't make sense to modernity, but it's obviously true. It's most obvious with the greatest historical.
What the hell is obvious about any of this? This isn't obvious. This is freaking delusion.
Figures like Christ or Napoleon, but they did very much write the world around them. Everything that humans built around us is something that came out of someone's mind and then became a material reality. The ideal is trying to use the material to reach its own aims, which is often why certain religions like communism or Islam can possess a certain nation, drive them crazy, and then attack their neighbors. On the smaller level, people will create the future by procreating and building their own households or families. On the greater scale, national leaders or prophets build entire civilizations. In the Hermetica, your social status should be dictated by how much of reality.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a communism is a religion now. I get the argument he's making. I think he's done whole videos on it. But to talk about it in that way, like it's just an assumption that this is true, that communism is a religion, without having the underlying argument made, it just is nonsense.
You're responsible for writing. This is why kings make more than peasants, since the king needs to mentally model the entire nation in geopolitics, and if he doesn't, he suffers for it. Inequality is a built-in part of the Hermetica, since the purpose of life is to face suffering and grow to evolve to a higher level. Inequality is needed to motivate men to...
He's just assuming what the purpose of life is now? Guys, I'm so sorry about this. I committed to it, so we're doing it. But what the hell is going on here? Yeah, yes, look, you can argue a lot of things have religious qualities. I have a lot to say about that. My background is in cultural anthropology. In a lot of ways, that's my favorite. And the anthropology of religion is the subfield within cultural anthropology that I like the most. I mean, I'd like to talk about it more. It's just not all that popular, to be honest. Good God.
Face chaos. The more chaos a man conquers and integrates, the more he is rewarded. The core values of the Hermetica are courage, discipline, and imagination. For an example in physics about why it's impossible to measure particle-to-particle interactions is that the future is actively being weaved and carved out by billions of people in real time. The reason modernity is so rich but is so miserable is partly that it gives humans so little agency, which is a core part of being human in the Hermetic philosophy. It's often as if a particle in physics is making a choice in real time given the future has not yet been determined. In the Hermetica, there are variables outside our control you should accept, but you have to choose between different timelines and use the force of will or imagination to hold onto the future you want as much as.
Yes, I'm going back to that. So the Göbekli Tepe thing. Sorry, I'm going to take a moment to talk about this. I'm going to go back to it and I'm going to finish it. I had to take a few weeks off. I got the cat, and I'm back, and I will be finishing that. I will be finishing the Göbekli Tepe, reading the entire thing. Oh, hey Maggie, there you are. What's up, sweetie? You're such a good girl. Okay. Yes, I am committed to it, and I'm going back, and we'll start that probably, hopefully this week. I don't want to promise anything, but I want to. God damn it, you are so freaking cute. Please do not step on my audio equipment.
As possible. We're all radio towers competing with one another to have the strongest mental wave so that our light can grow. This is so obvious in the internet today. People rub off their essence or vibration, which is an actual Hermetic concept, in which you gradually take on the character of the people and the places you've been. If you want to help the world, you should behave correctly, and according to this philosophy, what you do to others is what you become.
No.
Your intentions as you deal with the world rub off on the things you do, as you can see with great leaders, where as their hubris grows, their empire collapses. We see these trends in that high-trust governments become radically wealthier than low-trust ones, as you can see with the Spanish versus the British North America, is showing the Hermetic principle that intentions.
That sentence was grammatically insane.
Do in fact ripple across very long periods of time. The reasons that the left's fantasies about using bureaucracy to replace leadership are always utter failures is that a group needs to have the mental humanizing element in order to function as a unique whole, in that humanizing something is an active process in the Hermetica dependent on projecting higher quality consciousness into the unconscious. It is against nature for those with lower levels of consciousness to rule those higher, and these societies collapse into barbarism or decadence. With the scientific discovery, the scientist is shining the conscious mind into something they didn't know before to master it. The first step to gaining power over something is to see that it's there, often through intuition, then gain knowledge of it, figure out how it works, take control of it, and integrate it into your worldview. It's no wonder that practically all of the founders of early science were familiar with the Hermetica, since this is just the scientific method. The reason Bruno, followed by Galileo, thought that the Earth circled the sun wasn't since science told them so, since telescopes weren't advanced enough at that time for that. It's since the Hermetica said that this sun was just one of nearly infinite worlds circling their own sun in the vastness of space. Life stemmed from the energy of the sun crushing matter, and the Earth was nearly infinitely old, while the universe was even older. To go through other Hermetic doctrines that are thousands of years old, another is evolution. Evolution is called the transmutation of forms. This is how one form progresses to another, like how Homo erectus evolved into modern humans. In each case, you use suffering to burn away weakness, and then as you calcify to your core, which allows you to transmute to a higher level. This is almost identical to Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest, in which the struggle for survival promotes good genes. I don't have evidence Darwin was influenced by the Hermetica, but these sort of ideas were in wide circulation in 19th century Europe, so it's not unimaginable. However, Hermeticism does have an element missing in current evolutionary theory. There have been doubts among many authors for centuries how in Darwin's worldview there is space for the selecting of genes, but not how the mutations themselves are generated. Furthermore, how life seems to have very clear archetypal patterns where societies on the other side of the world have so many cultural similarities. How crabs have evolved from convergent consistent evolution many times over, or how insects, mammals, reptiles, and birds have all independently evolved to fly. Furthermore, how anyone evolves to fly seems pretty difficult just by chance. Modern science cannot deal with how staggeringly improbable life in the universe itself is, how all the coincidences line up for the Earth having the exact right amount of oxygen or temperature or gravity, where the slightest deviation in any of these would mean life never evolved. But it did, and we humans are here. Why does the universe even exist at all? At its core, the Hermetica is a way to integrate the evolutionary process into the divine. In it, it's our moral duty to learn and grow in order to be able to become more like God. The Hermetica is focused on increasing life charge, or the power of evolution, and it needs another religion to counterbalance it in other elements like social life or moral values. Those who don't grow get crushed by those who do, since life itself is trying to grow. Life uses consciousness to expedite the speed of its growth faster than would occur otherwise. Thus, the growth of consciousness will prioritize your position in evolution, which is why high consciousness peoples like humans can beat other apes or
High consciousness people like humans. Humans are people.
mammals, alternately, how the Europeans conquered the world with science and Christianity. In the Hermetica, the Earth is a living, breathing organism called the anima mundi, which is the collective unconscious of life. What the anima mundi does is its ultimate goal is growth, but in order to do that, it has to burn away weakness, so it creates competition, and life is a game where the goal is to grow and evolve. And we know this to be true because the level of complexity for life has been predicated upon the level of evolutionary advancement. So when we were at cellular life forms, we were competing against other cellular life forms, then we were competing reptiles against other reptiles, then mammals. And now, when we see the breakthrough of the last 1,000 years, every time humanity gets more advanced, you find that the game gets more complicated. And what the Hermetics believe is that the spirit world is fundamentally boring, and life is a place where souls go to get challenged and to suffer, to have life with real stakes, because life does not have value unless the end points are difficult enough to give you emotional value in them. And with the Hermetica, you're seeing that as life gets more advanced, the stage literally gets bigger. So millions of years ago, there was a point when life's biggest challenge was moving from the sea into the land as amphibians, and it's just gotten crazier ever since. In the Hermetica, there's both upwards and downwards evolution, in that you can either evolve to higher levels by dealing with dark things like war or chaos or competition to burn away suffering. At the same time, people have also been able to reach above to the divine, where you can see with figures like Socrates, Buddha, or Martin Luther. The divine means the pure and transcendent. So I don't mean this in a purely religious level, although other societies in history would interpret it this way. An example of the transcendent could be the technological advancement of modernity as compared to the earlier society, where we brought something new into the world that did not exist before. In the Hermetica, there is no barrier between science, religion, and mysticism. This was the culture that early science was developed in, all of whose founders were religious and steeped in the occult. Back then, they had a concept called natural science, in which you would use physical science in the study of the outside world to level up your consciousness towards God. Natural science was a Hermetic concept that died in the 17th century, and the division between science and religion.
If it died, then how are you talking about it?
That occurred since has become a civilizational disaster. What this means is that downwards evolution is survival of the fittest. Upwards is a nation having a genius which causes a breakthrough. Then their people, if sufficiently respectful, try to follow their teachings, which then degenerate over time. This is why empires are their strongest on their rise, or religions degenerate centuries after their original prophet, requiring future reformations to stay vigorous. The The Hermetica is the manliest philosophy in this regard, since morality requires constant struggle and overcoming of chaos. Let's look more at the Hermetic evolutionary process, since I think inside it is something very important. Part 4. Follow the process. I know this video is already too long, but I think it's worthwhile given the complexity and depth of the topic. A crazy element is I'm not even doing the Hermetica justice here. I'm not talking about the 7 planetary gods, which we can still see in our days of the week now, stemming from the Norse pagan versions of the Hermetica.
I didn't know that.
Since Odin is another name for Hermes Trismegistus. To go through the week, you have Sunday or the sun, Monday or the moon, Tuesday for Tyr, the Norse version of Mars, the god of war, followed by Wednesday for Wodan, also known by Odin, king of the gods, who is a form of Mercury. Then Thursday for Thor, the thunder god. Friday for Freya, the Norse Isis or fertility goddess. And then Saturday for Saturn, the god of entropy and boundaries. For a Hermetic, these all have symbolic meanings as underlying principles which operate across reality. The reason that our days of the week are named after them is they were seen as a very fundamental part of the world and culture by our ancestors. Another thing to keep in mind is that Germans under Odin and the Celts, who were ruled by a variation of the same god named Lug, are the only peoples on...
Isn't it Lou? Lug? Lou? I'm losing people here. I'm losing people. Like the video. I'm sorry. I'm committed to it. We gotta do it. We gotta do it.
Earth, which made Hermes Trismegistus their king, since that archetype also combines warrior or king roles with Hermes' sage elements. This was also in pagan times, before real contact with classical civilization, which suggests something archetypal to the Hermetica behind this in human nature. Is it any wonder as well that the peoples who made their chief god, the one of consciousness and evolution, were the ones who launched the industrial or scientific revolutions? Keep in mind, over the course of thousands of years, culture and genetics mix, as Harvard anthropology professor Joseph Heinrich has spoken it very cogently. This Northwest European creativity and openness are traits they have cultivated for thousands of years. You also have 3 sorts of archetypes of Hermeticism, which I split.
My 3 types of Hermetics? He has Catholic, shamanic, and Gnostic. Oh, God.
Split into Catholic, shamanic, and Gnostic. Catholic is the form of Hermeticism which has totally integrated with Christianity, which has been dominant over Western history. This values modesty and love more than other sects. For these different categories, the second would be the shamanic, which is more so the kind of stuff Odin would do with facing overt chaos or savagery to use horror to grow, like how Odin nearly killed himself multiple times to attain wisdom. Finally, the Gnostic element that got pretty big at certain segments, and there's a confusion that Gnostic Hermetics wrote one of the most important Hermetic primary sources, the Corpus Hermeticum. For a frame of reference, and this is its own rabbit hole, Gnostics were a religion from the Middle East in the same era which penetrated other religions like the Christians, Jews, or classical civilization. Their deal is they flip the devil in the Old Testament God. The earth is bad, the serpent in the garden was the good guy who is trying to liberate us, and Jesus followed the serpent. You can see how there's an insidious element here. The way to spot the difference is that normal Hermetics don't dislike the physical body and see it as something to love, while Gnostic Hermetics see the physical body as disgusting. In the Hermetica, you have to maintain balance between mind, body, and soul. This is why in the Renaissance, probably the single historic event most colored by the Hermetica, the Renaissance man was a savant in many disciplines. That's since in the Hermetica, if you're too stuck in your head, you should lift more to create balance, and if your soul is degenerate, you should use your mind to try to become more holy. If you have an issue, find a balance for it. This is also why the nude was so common in Renaissance art, since the ability to strip something to a nude form showed things at their very core. The Hermetica radically prizes authenticity and rejects a life without it, since authenticity is a way to connect with God. In most cases, the Hermetica is not an anti-sex religion, which I think is necessary in a society where the birth rate is crashing to zero, but
You know what? I did commit to it. I'm going to take a poll. Let's do this. For those of you still here, I appreciate. Should we finish this video or move on to uncontacted tribes? This video or tribes? Start the poll. I'll give it a couple minutes. We'll continue this video for now, and then I'll switch. If you're just joining us, you can still vote. But it's what, 7:08 my time? I'm going to give it till 7:11. 7:11. Great story. Okay.
traditional religious authorities are unable to deal with that. At the same time,
so cute.
Keep in mind the Hermetica balances sex or authenticity with responsibility. You should only have sex if you're mature enough for the consequences, and you should have
Thank you for that
as
commitment,
much power
Giovanni.
to be authentic as you can responsibly manage. In the Hermetica, it's a moral duty to try to pair up your sort of masculine or feminine energy with the best possible combination to make the best possible child. And so part of the sexual duality is seen as this divine process of evolution towards higher forms. Then you have the four elements of earth, fire, wind, and air, alongside so much other stuff I'm not going to get into. You also have minerals, and there's an entire Hermetic theory of history that you can read with the good book, A Secret History of the World, and I leave my sources in the description here as always. However, the core theme which I think the Hermetica does really well is the evolutionary process, which was ported into modern science, and the West's institutions like democracy, capitalism, or science were created since upper-class Europeans in the early modern period were very familiar with the Hermetica. For example, for all of these institutions, you see two opposing forces, like masculine and feminine, competing. Through this process, one subjugates the other, takes their best elements, and then makes a child. This also relates to Hegel, who we know was very influenced by the Hermetica, with the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. For science, this is the iron law of empirical testing between two hypotheses. For democracy, the two-party system, and capitalism, it's the competition of the free market. As I like to say, follow the Tao to wealth and wisdom. A great irony is that we live in a world made by the Hermetica, in which before the Hermetica went out of fashion with the rise of modernity, institutions were already set up which followed these principles. The Hermetica teaches that when you set up these triangles, you will get an exponential result.
Okay, with a unanimous of 4 votes, but unanimous, we're going to move on here. We do not need to finish this. Fantastic. Let me get this other video ready. Dude, whatever. I don't know what the hell is going on here. Okay, I already got it pulled up. Just got to pull it into the tab. Share this tab instead. Gonna move this. I'm gonna make a timestamp. Yes, an initial commitment shouldn't force to finish something. That's like the sunk cost fallacy. Yes. Yeah. You're right. And that's why we're moving on. We're moving on. Yeah, it was so close. 1 hour, 58:10. Uncontacted tribes. Now, I hope that this video is allowed. God, Lex Friedman looks like a waiter here. What's he doing? Let's get it going. Never before seen footage of uncontacted tribe warriors. This is Paul Rosalie and Lex Friedman. This was recommended by my friend and viewer, Diego, from Mexico. And let's see what this guy has to say. I'm not sure what I'm going to say about this. I generally will tell people that uncontacted is generally not a thing, but I will reserve judgment. So let's see. It's generally a misnomer. They're not necessarily completely uncontacted. So let's go.
To make sense, I have to show you this footage.
And this has not been shown ever before.
This is a world first. I mean, up until now, that's the other thing, we're sitting there this day and the only thing you've ever seen are these blurry images of someone's
Oh, no, Diego recommended this Lex Friedman video. He didn't recommend the whatifalthist video.
phone from 100 meters away of the uncontacted tribes, and we're sitting there with 800 millimeters with a 2x teleconverter and R5s. And so this is, as we're looking through the farms,
R5's great camera, very expensive camera,
anticipating the tribe coming. I'll put a little bit of volume so you can hear it.
Okay, so it looks like they're in Peru based on the flag I just saw.
And then you can see this is the moment. This is us running when they're out. They're coming down the beach. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are people. So the thing is, they are dressed traditionally in the sense that they're not wearing anything modern. So that's a good sign for them being uncontacted. I'll do a little look up of maybe what this group is in a side tab.
Oh, wow.
You see how many thousands of butterflies. But look at the way they move. Look at the way they point. Look at him with his bow.
Wow. They're trying to figure out what they're looking at.
Uh-huh. And they didn't know what the cameras are there. So this was the guys looking out the back. So he's going, there's something back here. You could hear the women in the farm. And I'm looking in every direction because I'm going, which way is the arrow coming from? But see, he has his shotgun. This is just like a farm shotgun. Even if he shot it, you have to use a stick to bang out the shell.
Okay, so some context for this. Looks like they have this woman right here. You can see you can. It looks like her face. Oh, wait, is that a boy? Red ochre on the face. Maybe some sort of red pigment. Long spears. I see nothing modern on them. So this guy is a conservationist. And from a Reddit comment, I'm seeing that he was patrolling an area to keep illegal loggers and drug traffickers away and preserve the Amazon. So they are in what I assume is the Peruvian Amazon, based on it, based on the flag that I saw. This is a major problem in parts of the Amazon throughout Brazil, Ecuador, Peru, and I assume other countries as well. But those are the countries I know it's an issue. But what is up, Ermish? Nice to see you, buddy. I'm back. Here I am. So, unfortunately, uncontacted or little contacted, because they're living in mostly traditional ways of life, they are not able to advocate for themselves, of course. So they are at heavy risk of being harmed by illegal logging companies who will encroach on their land and harm them, including killing them, in order to get the logging stuff. So let's continue.
But see, as they come closer, they start laying down see, he's laying down his bow and arrow. They understand. No mole.
Okay, so clearly they're able to communicate to these people. Obviously, they don't speak their language, but they're able to communicate to them that they mean them no harm, which is fantastic.
So these are warriors, and the way they were at first.
Okay, they don't look like warriors to me. They look like mostly children. They could still be warriors, depending. I don't know how old they are, but calling them warriors is making a really, really broad assumption. You know, they do have weapons, but those weapons could be for hunting.
First moving and really look like they're ready for.
No, I'm sorry. These are men. They look like children from further away, but these are men. Likes to so cringe, no comment, but you know.
Violence, and now they're all standing in a relaxed.
Yeah.
And
The thing with groups like this is that you don't know what priors they have. You don't know how they're understanding what you're doing. Obviously, they don't have weapons on them. They might not know what the cameras are, but maybe they have enough understanding to recognize that those are not weapons. So maybe they've likely seen people before at least.
smiling? Are they smiling?
Smiles come at some point. I would say that one of these guys seemed like in a leadership position. He did most of the talking.
What's with the different hand gestures? This.
So if they're uncontacted, how are they talking? What language are they speaking? Who are they speaking to? Likely there's another group of indigenous people that they're working with, that is somewhat related to this group. But again, let's continue.
The holding your hand up to the face. All of this means something.
All of this means something. Some had red smeared on their faces. Some had yellow.
Did you have a sense of hierarchy at all? Like the boss?
Again, there was just these two dominant guys, and like
Yes, Rue.
this guy and one other guy who looked almost like him, like his brother.
Yeah.
Gesture.
Wow. This is incredible, Paul.
You see the rope.
Yeah.
Some of that rope is.
Yeah, I can kind of tell who the bosses are.
Right? All right, so a few of the.
Yeah, that guy's clearly in charge.
But see, even that, as he's
universal.
pointing, we're
Yeah.
going, what are you pointing at?
So they're just giving them bananas.
You guys are nuts. You guys are nuts. Oh.
You see, as though they're rushing in, there's this desperation. They're hungry. They
Is
also.
that in the water?
That doesn't necessarily mean they're that hungry. Probably they are, right? But I've seen a lot of First Contact, mostly older videos, but they kind of always, there's always an element of this. A lot of people living in traditional ways of life, there isn't necessarily a lot of abundance. So whether or not they're hungry immediately, that might not be the motivation here. But regardless.
Or is that Rommel in the water?
In
case-
this particular video, it's a guy named Liner. But like, see these guys, they're fighting over it. It's not that we're all going to share it later. It's, I get mine, you get yours. And so what does that mean?
Yeah. But here they're in peaceful mode. For
Now,
sure.
after we'd given them several boatloads of bananas, things did calm
Like the video, please. I'm still here. Sorry.
down. Rommel said to them, look, we've given you what we can give you. We gave you sugarcane. We gave you.
Okay, he's saying Ramos said to them, how is he communicating with them if they're an uncontacted tribe? How do they speak the same language? He might mean like communicated to them some way, but
Rommel said to them, look, we've given you what we can give you. We gave you sugarcane. We gave you boatloads of plantains. And so then there came a time where things were a little more relaxed. They were walking around. We were, at one point we had a great moment where we'd given them the plantains, we'd given them the bananas, and he'd said, look, that's it. He said, we've given you what you asked for. You asked for bananas. We don't cut the trees here. All of us here are not tree cutters. We're indigenous people, and he couldn't explain who the hell we were, but they were like, we don't cut the trees. We're not the loggers. And they're like, okay. So then at some point, Ignacio went out and started, he'd go like this and they'd go like this. And, he danced a little bit, they danced a little bit. And then there was this very human moment of just sort of joking.
So even Ignacio warmed up.
Even Ignacio warmed up. Once he realized it didn't seem like anyone was going to die that day, things did calm down. It was a false sense of security.
Yeah, so didn't seem like anyone was going to die that day. These are very, very, very. These are tense situations because you don't know. Like you can try to communicate with them in the sense of you're trying to use symbols and hand gestures. He's talking about talking, so I don't know if there's a shared language here. It seems like the guy that he's with is also an indigenous person, but that can mean a lot of things. Like obviously an indigenous person could be somebody who lives in a completely modern way, but they are ethnically and culturally rooted in an indigenous culture. So that could be they're as modern as Lex and this guy Paul here. And I should say, I don't want to come across like I'm criticizing. From what I've learned about this guy, just based on a quick read of it, this guy is doing some incredible work. Absolutely wonderful that he's doing that. But since you don't know who these people are, you don't know like the difference, like I was talking about earlier, the difference in a culture at this level, they could be completely malignant or malevolent rather, completely malevolent or completely benign or anywhere in between. So you don't know. They might be looking at you and they might be wanting to trick you into something to take everything that you have. They might want to do that. They might also be completely opposed to any sort of violence at all. We don't know. And they don't know. They're worried about loggers. These people have probably been harmed. These actual people, this group of people has probably been harmed by loggers themselves, or at least tried to. So you don't, and you also don't know how they communicate, what means what. So you don't know how they're going to take something that you do, and things can turn violent very quickly.
Security. Here, I'll show you. There's
and you just said a false sense of security
here, though. Yeah, this is just them interacting with the boat.
This is truly incredible, man.
But then they don't have boats. They don't have stone tools. They don't. Imagine if you showed them ice. You know, they wouldn't.
That's a good thing to bring
historic.
up.
I mean, you hear Percy Fawcett encountering the tribes. We've heard of anecdotal accounts of the tribes.
Percy Fawcett was the guy in the 1800s who went and looked in the Amazon for not DeSoto. Oh gosh, the conquistador who went down the Amazon River. One of my favorites, and I always forget his name. Francisco de Orellana.
The first time that the tribes have been filmed, that we can hear their voices, that there's a documented interaction happening. I mean, now look how comfortable he's getting. He's so close. They asked him for his shirt. He gave his shirt. They asked him for his pants. He gave his pants. He was in his underwear.
Yep.
You see the shirt that's over his shoulder. Ignacio took off his.
They know how to handle the boat. This isn't the first time they handled the boat. These people probably have boats. They have their own type of boats. Obviously, they're not going to have a produced boat with like milled wood, but they live along this river. They definitely have their own style of boats. I don't know what kind that would be. Likely, I'm going to speculate here, just to be clear. This is speculation. It could be like a dugout canoe. That would be the simplest form of a boat that seems to prop up pretty much everywhere. But I don't know what type of wood they have. It could also be a type of raft that they have. But they know how to handle a boat in the sense that they've seen boats before. These are people uncontacted. Truly doesn't really exist, especially in a place where you'd be able to get to at all, right? Like you have North Sentinel Island in the Andamanese Islands, which even the people there are not uncontacted. Those people are, they have been contacted in the past and they are currently refusing contact. Good point, Jude. Cross-contamination, I don't know. I don't know enough about germ theory to know, but definitely you might expose them to diseases. It's definitely a possibility, but I assume that they know some stuff about that. But that is, again, to say that they're probably not fully uncontacted in the sense that they're not, that they have been around, at least if they haven't been around a guy like Paul from the West, an American, they definitely have been around other indigenous people who have interacted with the modern world more. So I don't know if it's that much of a worry as it would be on somewhere like North Sentinel Island, where they're, even though they have refused contact, they have been completely isolated for a long time.
His Jungle Keeper shirt and threw it to the anthropologist, and then the anthropologist walked it off and threw it to them. So over the shoulder of that uncontacted naked warrior is a Jungle Keeper shirt with the logo showing. So they're like their
great.
second shirt.
You just upgraded that guy's status in the tribe. He's gonna be the new boss with that shirt.
he's got a dope ass polo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
He didn't even have to
cool.
order it. But yeah, this isn't like the
So that shirt is probably like a lot of these cultures are animistic. A lot of these early, we don't like to use the word primitive, but you know, living in this state much closer to nature, closer to hunter-gatherer lifestyle, often, almost always, they are animistic cultures. So they're probably going to view that shirt as containing spiritual energy, mana, manatau, whatever it's called in their culture. But because it comes from these people that they've interacted with that they likely view as very powerful because they have these items with them, they're very likely going to view that object as containing that spiritual energy and being an important object. I'm gonna pull up something in another tab here while we
the aftermath when things were calm. And then my sort of moment with this that really stuck with me was when Rommel said to me, he said, you know, they're asking about you. And I said, what are they asking? I said, you know, me? He goes, yeah, they're asking about you. And, you know, again, I'm not tall, but compared to the people in the village, I was a little bit taller and the big shoulders. And he said, they said, you look like a warrior. He said, could you come forward? He said, show them that you don't mean any harm. He said, show them your palms. And so he pulled me up onto the beach. And this was right before they left. But see, I hold up my hands, listen. And they sang back.
Yeah, so I just want to show you this. This is from the 1930s, the New Guinean Highlands, which at the time would have very much been uncontacted. We watched some documentaries on this channel here before. This guy, you see his headdress here. This is like what is it? It's a can of some sort, but they have incorporated that into a headdress because it's something that shows spiritual power because it comes from these people. They're not familiar with what this object is, but they associate it. It's shiny and they don't know what it is, and it comes from these people that they view as being powerful. So they incorporate it into what they wear. So I think that's really cool. Continue. I'm just going to back it up here.
Beach. And this was right before they left. But see, I hold up my hands, listen. And they sang back. They're cantando, they're singing. They raise their hands, I raise my hands. Wow. And then we were left with watching them walk off the beach into the jungle with everything that we'd given them. And they were gone. And so we went downriver the next day, and the community said to us, okay, now you understand this is real. This is terrifying. You felt that fear. You have a duty, if you're going to protect this river, to protect us from them and to help us figure out what future they want. If they want to come to us, if they want to learn farming, if they, whatever it is, you know, that's fine. But they were like, we need protection from you guys. And then in this video in the beginning, I'm sort of narrating to the camera and walking around right as they're coming up the beach. But you see this guy right there in the blue shirt. Mm-hmm. That's George. And he was very friendly, very confident with
Wait,
this.
I
He
gotta
said,
back
"Don't
this
be."
up, Rue. What?
And then in this video in the beginning, I'm sort of narrating to the camera what future they want. If they want to come to us, if they want to learn farming, if they whatever it is, that's fine. But they were like, we need protection from you guys. And then in this video in the beginning, I'm sort of narrating to the camera and walking around right as they're coming up the beach. But you see this guy right there in the blue shirt. That's George. And he was very friendly, very confident with this. He said, don't be scared. They're not going to hurt us. And the next day we went back to town, long journey back to town. Go to sleep. We wake up in the morning and we find out that the following early morning, our friends in the community had said, okay, the tribe is gone. We gave them all the things they wanted. We gave them sugarcane, bananas. We said, please come back. You're welcome here anytime.
I wish he was going into more detail on he's talking about saying to them, but like I wish he was going into more detail on how they were communicating with these people. I'm very interested in this and this guy. I like this guy. Might just go and find this whole video and do this whole video later. People would be interested in it. That seems interesting.
And George was driving a boat, and there was people on the boat. And as they were going upriver, the tribe, 200 of the tribe ran out, surrounded the boat, and they started firing arrows. And everybody else could hit the deck and get under the benches and hide behind bags of rice. George was driving, and he was leaning back as he's driving. He's driving as fast as he can, and one arrow came in just above his scapula and came out by his belly button. And so he had that 7-foot arrow tip through him. And so they pulled him out. And I saw the boat afterward, and there's just, horrific amounts of blood all over the boat. And he had to be medevaced out, and somehow he lived. And we were able to help getting him a helicopter, getting him evac'd, all this. But again, you just go, these people came out of the jungle and they asked for bananas. We gave them bananas, and we, in every way possible, said we mean peace. We want friendship with you. And then the next day, they attacked.
What do you think happened? Why?
Rubate speculating that I believe that's correct. I wish I had confirmation of that, but absolutely, Rue, you're definitely learning from my channel that you understand that he was talking to an intermediary community. Yes, fantastic, love that. Yes, so there was probably another group that's like half in the modern world, half in the indigenous way of life, and they were able to communicate through them. But yes, so apparently one of them has been shot with an arrow.
Again, you just go, these people came out of the jungle and they asked for bananas. We gave them bananas, and we, in every way possible, said we mean peace. We want friendship with you. And then the next day, they attacked.
So you don't know what happened overnight, right? It's like those people probably went back to their village and they were like, and again, this is speculation. We don't know. But they went back to their village, and then some guy, a sort of big man type of person, a leader in this community, was like, hey, they gave us some stuff, but they have more stuff, and we can take more stuff. We should do that tomorrow. We should fight them and take their stuff. And, they don't care if they were friendly. Certain groups might not care, or there was something else that happened where, who knows? Who knows?
What do you think happened? Why do you think their mind turned? Or maybe this has to do with the role of violence in their
Have
society.
a great night,
Maybe it's so integrated into how they interact with the world that they don't even see that as a fundamental shift in the interaction.
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. And the only thing I can think is that the way they hid the women from us, you don't know, for them, maybe we're not allowed to see their women, or because the one thing that we got was that as George...
It's also possible that other groups of people have done bad things to the women specifically. Or it's just, maybe that didn't happen. Hopefully that didn't happen, frankly. And it was just like they were just being protective. Yeah.
George's boat and this other boat were going upriver. It which is how they live. It's not like they were doing anything wrong. These people live in a community days into the Amazon. They were going fishing. And so they came around a bend, and I think they spooked the tribe. The tribe might have just acted defensively and said, we don't know who this is. The motors could have set them off. We don't know. They shot him. And then the other thing is the thing with the necklace. I've asked anthropologists about this, and their answer was that at this point, they said, you know more than we do. But that.
Yeah.
Because 2 of them had the exact same item around their necks. And it seems to be a Brazil nut and then some sort of casing around the side. And it looked like animal teeth.
Okay, look at this. Maybe, okay, this is probably what they gave them, but this is obviously a modern object he's carrying on his back. So they can't be that uncontacted unless they literally just got that, right? Who knows?
Positioned in there, and it's like, what are you carrying? Are you carrying medicine? Are you carrying some sort of a totem? But both of them, and it's not a comfortable thing to wear around your neck, a grapefruit sized bigger.
Do you have a sense that that's a container, or is it just like a totem?
It seems like a container. They didn't let it get wet. They cared for it. The guy in this picture, so he's got this is a piece of tree fiber that he has it on, and then he's gotten his hands on Brazil nut sacks, plastic sacks from one of the farms across the river. And so they just...
Okay, that's what he's saying. From one of the farms across the river. So he has modern... Like, they're not uncontacted, right? And I'm not criticizing this guy, Paul. I admire this guy quite a bit. But this is what I'm talking about, where, like, uncontacted... Like, it's not like these people are completely cut off from modern society. They're aware of it. Definitely, even before this interaction. They're just mostly living not in the modern world. Like the video, please. Please just click the like. I'm begging you.
They take. And one of them got a machete, and he was walking as they were leaving.
You have a machete. Where are they getting a machete? Well, I mean, if they raid the farm, I mean, that's a level of contact, right? So it's not like, I know it's, maybe they don't contact the individual people, but they're at least aware of the modern world, and they're interacting with it.
Leaving again during that period where it got friendly, he was leaving and he had the machete and he was playing with the machete and like swinging it at butterflies. And one of my friends, this guy Bacho, he goes, deja mi machete. He's like, drop the machete. And the guy just looked at him and was like, yeah, come and get it. I was like, yeah, you cross the river and see what happens.
Do you think he figured out, or they later figured out how to use a machete?
Oh, they know machete.
They understand machete.
Yeah, they do raids for machetes.
Okay.
Yeah.
They understand the power of a sharpened metal.
They do raids for machetes. Very interesting. Yes, they would be aware of who's living around them, but that is contact. If you're raiding, I'm gonna follow this guy on Twitter.
I mean, it's a Excalibur sword to them,
Yeah.
But yeah, that one has stuck with me because I go, what were they carrying in there?
So what are some of the questions? Like, if you can know everything you'd want to know about them. So maybe in the space of communication and language, that's really interesting. You mentioned that there's all kinds of calls, animal calls. So they obviously know how to fake animal calls.
Yeah, they can use animal calls with enough complexity that they can do basic commands. So they can speak in Capuchin. They use Tinamu calls. Some of our rangers were upriver a few months.
And that's fair. That's why you have to be clear on what we mean by contact. Quite hostile. It's like, so in earlier societies, societies that are living in closer to a hunter-gatherer way of life, there is, in general, especially compared to our modern society, I mean, even if you go back 200 years, the world is more violent. Hostility and violence is a lot more commonplace just in general. So I wouldn't put it as a moral judgment on these people. It's a lot more reflective of their environment. Nobody has the monopoly on violence in these places. They don't have police officers. They haven't had thousands of years of the creation of social institutions and creation of trust.
months ago. This is long after this. This is the recent.
And they are also people that have violence inflicted upon them by the modern world. Probably more than the modern world inflicts on them. Or, I'm sorry, the modern world probably inflicts more violence on them than they inflict on the modern world. Yes, right. I wasn't implying, Jude, that you were making a moral judgment. I was just saying in general that it's not a moral judgment. So Rockefeller, the Rockefeller guy, he very likely was actually not eaten by those people. And that wasn't Sentinel Island. That was on New Guinea. That was New Guinean tribes people. So there is a famous picture of Rockefeller, of this Rockefeller, I forget which one it was, of a bunch of indigenous people on New Guinea running around him, and it looks like they're going to eat him. And those people actually were cannibals at the time, but he didn't disappear. That Rockefeller guy, he didn't disappear until his boat capsized months later. So he likely just drowned, and it's a story that he was eaten. He likely actually wasn't eaten by those people. It's a whole thing. I've talked about it before on the channel. I mean, they might have eaten him in a certain situation. It's just that they likely didn't eat him because he likely drowned before he got to the shore.
Recently. Just recently, they were upriver and they found a trail, let's say Nomole Trail, a Mashkopiro Trail, and it was Ignacio, of course, and he made there's like a secret whistle they do, this mouth.
Actually, I think that the Rockefeller thing, this shield behind me, this one over there, that thing, that's a hazmat shield from the Indonesian part of New Guinea. The island of New Guinea is about half administered by Indonesia. It used to be administered by Australia, and then it was handed to Indonesia during decolonization. The other half is its own country. But that, I believe, is the tribe that was pictured with Rockefeller. I'll look that up while I continue the video. Oh, really? Yeah. Are you from Australia? It's very common New Guinea is an anthropologist, especially culture anthropologist paradise. There's so much there. But I always have to look behind me now before I start rolling my chair for where Maggie is. I believe that they were hazmat people. Yeah. Love Australia. We watched a documentary here a few months ago on the channel of some contact with the New Guinean Highlands.
Whistled out into the jungle, and he was listening, and they whistled back. And so him and everybody on the team just ran back to the boat and got out of there. But it was like, at least they answered. They didn't just shoot.
Yes, I have confirmed. Michael Rockefeller, hazmat tribe, the same people. It's very possible that the people in this picture, I think it's from the 60s or 50s, maybe 70s, 1961. Yeah, his catamaran overturned. It's possible that this shield was created by some of the direct descendants of the people pictured in this photograph, which is very cool because I used to live in Indonesia, and that's where my dad got this shield. Oh, I'm sorry.
In Capuchin, they used Tinamu calls. Some of our rangers were upriver a few months ago.
Oh, that's so
this
cool,
is
man.
long after this. This is recently. Just recently, they were upriver and they found a trail, let's say Nomole Trail, a Mashkopiro Trail, and it was Ignacio, of course, and he made there's like a secret whistle they do, this mouth, and he whistled out into the jungle, and he was listening, and they whistled back. And so him and everybody on the team just ran back to the boat and got out of there. But it was like, at least they answered. They didn't just shoot. He whistled, they whistled, and they said, out. And he got out. But it's like, we don't know, where are the old people? Do they not survive? What is the What are the marriage rituals? How is reproduction handled? There's one or two children in the Amazon that I know of who have, washed down river on a log and been rescued by communities and then raised, and they either learn the native dialect or Spanish. And then, of course, at some point, somebody will go and say, what was it like when you lived with them? And the answer is always the same. I forget. They don't talk about it.
Okay. Try to make sense of that. So he's saying some of the children who would have lived amongst those people are then rescued when they float down a river, and they're raised in either another more modern indigenous community or just mainstream Peruvian. Peru, it's difficult what is indigenous, like in America, in the United States, what is indigenous, I know Native American people, they are indigenous in the sense that they are ethnically Native American, but they're also, they live in a house like mine, and their subsistence strategy is the same as mine in the sense that they work a job. They don't, they're not hunting deer or buffalo or whatever. But in Peru, in a place where the majority of people are indigenous, it means a little bit less. But I forget my point. I completely lost my train of thought. This is very cool, by the way, what you're sharing here. Who has those masks now and metal swords? That's interesting. So the children then they're raised. Trauma and or deep differences between the societies. It could also be that they could have literally, because of trauma, speculation, completely actually forgotten about what happened. There could also be a cultural practice of them, if they are found, that they're told not to talk about it. And there could even be a level of spiritual a spiritual danger imparted in them as children against speaking about their ways of life and what might happen if they do talk about it. But again, unfortunately, it's speculation. It's very speculative.
So maybe we know that they value secrecy. I mean, when you're afraid of the outside world, you don't. Part of that is confidentiality. They all sign NDAs.
Yeah. There's some really good NDAs.
Right, he didn't say ages.
It's understood. It's an NDA. You can't. There's no lawyers. There's only one way to execute the law.
Yeah, it's either a really strong NDA or that it is savage. That they're living out there in the jungle and that you're eating monkeys and turtles and you're hungry for days on end, and your wife might get stolen by another tribe. Your baby might get stolen. I mean, imagine the bot flies and the things that they must put up with. It's just, I mean, what we experienced in 3 days of living out with modern camping gear and headlamps and a sense of direction, and they're doing none of that. You could put us out there naked, a very different story. So
yeah, the brutality of nature.
Yeah,
Werner Herzog comes to mind. That they have to live in that. Yeah. But there's something about the jungle that serves as a catalyst for spirituality. So they must also have a religious component, a spiritual component that probably unifies them. There must be an ideology they operate under.
There must be, and there's many things they must have. They must have a belief system. They probably have amazing origin stories. It would be amazing to know what things they have accurately and inaccurately guessed about us, about the outside world. I mean, they've never heard of the country they live in, or of World War II, or any of it. And so seeing them come across the beach was surreal, because it's like this aperture into history.
By the way, I mean, you do have a certain look. So you realize, I'm singing to you, your face is carved
Jewish. I'm just kidding.
in some woods somewhere. And there's a few of them gathering around.
I don't know if he's Jewish. I'm just making a comment on his nose, which is similar to my freaking schnoz that I got going on.
and like still singing about the great gringo, with
the full beard and
with
the
a
big
beard.
nose. They probably drew this like he's got.
Oh, he's talking about his nose too. His nose might be bigger than mine, man. I got a big nose. I don't know. I used to not like my side profile, but yeah. And a lot of these people, they don't really have beards, right? You saw in the video of them. I don't know if they'll show it again, but having beards is a lot less common amongst people of Asian descent in general. Not all Asians, of course, but that's where the indigenous people of the Americas, that's where they're rooted in, and the root populations also are much less likely to have beards. That's why these were commented on a lot in any of the contact, in any of the annotations, whatever you want to say about contact of Europeans, especially Spaniards and Portuguese, with the people of the Americas. They're often commenting on their beards.
They're all over his face and a huge nose, and they tell their children.
And it could be anything. You could be like, to the children, they say, this is the monster you should be afraid of, or this could be the most beautiful encapsulation of the outside world. And it could be everything in between. You don't get to control the myths.
You don't get to control the myths. Yeah, God only knows. But I mean, it's
so interesting.
So now in that 130,000 acres that we have, we know, and this is what we sort of have to come out of the closet with this. Like, we are now protecting these people, and the only way to do that is to make sure that they're not contacted, let alone that they don't get machine guns shot at them by the narcos, or that crazy, hippie gringos don't go down there thinking they're gonna, join the coolest commune on earth.
So how much of the
coolest commune on earth? Listen, I don't think there are many people who want to join this type of living. Living in the jungle naked, crazy. Who wants to do that? I don't even think I want to do it with like modern camping gear, like he said. Sounds terrible.
Move about is within the 130,000 acres of rainforest you've been able to save, and how much of it is not? How much of it is in the extra 200,000 acres that you're trying to save?
Most of that 200,000 that we're still trying to protect is territory that is theirs. And in order, people always ask me this, they're like, first, a lot of people ask, how could you buy the Amazon? They're like, that doesn't make sense. And it's like, well, bad news for you. Somebody already owns it, and we have to buy it from them so that they don't log it. And so these landowners are going to sell their forest to the logging companies, because owning 10,000 acres of the Amazon doesn't help you if you're a third generation jungle man. And now it's just something that's up there and you live in the city. And so they're going to contract either the narcos or the loggers or the miners to go out there and use it, and they'll get a little money. And those people, when they see these people, will kill them.
Yes. I'm just going to replay that because this is very important. One of the themes on this channel is, these type of modern, contemporary, indigenous issues, generally Native Americans, but this is it as well. And while contemporary Native Americans, they do have some issues, some serious issues, this is a lot more severe because of their inability, not because of their incompetence or anything. It's just they're so disconnected from the modern world. It's very hard for them to advocate for themselves. And that's why it's so great that there are people like this guy, Paul, who might be my new favorite person, is doing the work that he does.
Logging company.
And thank you to Lex Friedman, who, I have mixed opinions of, but I appreciate him for giving this guy a platform.
It's because owning 10,000 acres of the Amazon doesn't help you if you're a third generation jungle man. And now it's just something that's up there.
Oh, he's been on Joe Rogan. I've probably seen this guy on Joe Rogan before. He was on 2 weeks ago. Maybe I should check that out. Maybe we should do that on another live, another day. Okay, let's continue.
And you live in the city. And so they're going to contract either the narcos or the loggers or the miners to go out there and use it, and they'll get a little money. And those people, when they see these people, will kill them.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And shotguns and machines.
There's not going to be consequences, right? It's not like who's going to report it to the police? They don't even know what the police are.
Machine guns in the end will win, not to mention the germs.
So all the money.
He's bringing up the germs. Was that you, Jude, who was bringing up contamination? Yeah.
Trying to raise and all the land that you're trying to save, it's all towards that. Protecting the deep jungle. So when you buy up the jungle, you just want to let it be, let the natural ecosystem come back to life in the cases when it was logged, or just flourish if it hasn't.
Again,
And this logging, right? They kill them, they get rid of them because it prevents them from logging. But even if they don't do that, when they destroy the forest, that's their life. That's where they get their food. That's where they get their sustenance, their shelter, the little shelter they have. They're getting everything from these trees in the jungle. Unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate.
talking about the last great jungle. I always called it the last endless forest because this place is so incredibly remote. And then the other question I always get is people say, well, why is this river so important? And for my whole career, my whole time, 20 years in the Amazon, it's been that it's massively intact forest. Places like the ancient forest where the trees have never been cut. So it's forest that's been growing since the dawn of time, and thousands of species can be on a single Shiwawako tree, and it's Avatar on Earth. It's you can see the sweat come off your skin and rain down, and then drink it out of the river, and you're.
Giovanni, when you say bribed, what do you mean? It's not necessarily a bribe. If you're referring to what I was talking about before, like if there are people who have technical legal ownership over this land. I don't know if those people are in the government or some corporation. I don't know how it works, but it's not a bribe. It's like those people get a contract. They get the legal authority to go cut down the trees. And usually I was thinking about this for loggers, but apparently it's also drug traffickers. That those people are probably not contracted. They're probably just, they need to go through that area. And drug traffickers generally not known for being peaceful, loving, caring people, I guess. I'm sure in some cases they are, besides the fact that they're delivering drugs, which can really harm people. But it's all speculation. We don't know the priors of these people that are uncontacted or little contacted, whatever you want to call it. We don't know how they're viewing these situations, but most of their interaction with the modern world is going to be with people who wish to do them harm. So my speculation is that, yes, because they're interacting with the modern world in a hostile way, or the modern world is interacting with them in a hostile way, it's very possible that they're going to look at these people and think that they're related to the people that have done them harm in the past.
Part of the chemical physical reality there, and so it's one of the last places that's untouched. This changed everything because we realized that along with the butterflies and the monkeys and the jaguars and the trees and the ecosystem, there's also a human culture that will in the next few years cease to exist, that will be exterminated if we don't protect them. And when you look back at what happened to indigenous cultures all over the world over the past few centuries, that they've been wiped out, we collectively now, because we know this, have a chance to undo all of the injustices that happened in the past by at least doing one right, by saying these people want one thing, to just be left alone. Imagine if we just protected the river. And then it's not that they're this thing that's vanishing from reality, but they get to continue living that way. And then if they want to come out and contact us, great. And if they want to continue living like this for the next 10,000 years, they can.
Right. So in this case, legal ownership sounds pretty tricky, like there's people living there. Yes. And these same types of things, by the way, happened during, like, when the United States was early on. There were companies that got legal ownership, companies and even governments, if you're talking at a larger scale, legal ownership over the land in their own culture, right? But it's not like that legal ownership is recognized by the people who are living on that land. Those people are living outside of the society that cares about contracts and legal ownership. And they're also, those people that are living on that land are not considered by the institutions that are granting that legal ownership. So yeah, it's like, okay, we have legal in our culture understanding of who owns the land, but they're just completely disregarding the people who actually live on that land because they're outside of the culture. Does that make sense? Am I being unclear with this? If I am, I can try to explain it a little bit more. But yeah, it's money. It's always money. I used to listen to this podcast called, I think it was called Rebellion Radio, something like that. But I've never seen this before, but it was a Native American podcast. It was a podcast done by a Native American. I've never before seen a podcast like YouTube videos, whatever, they can be stripped off of a platform. But I actually like it was wiped off the internet the last time I checked. Like I couldn't find it anymore. And I think it's because the guy was actually advocating for armed revolution against the United States, essentially. And probably Canada as well. But it was wiped off. But I learned that from that guy. But okay, let's finish this off here, and then I'm going to go get my bacon, egg, and cheese sourdough sandwich. I think it was called Rebellion Radio. Let me quickly see if I can find it. No, that's a Hunger Games podcast. Resistance Radio? Resistance Radio, Native American... Oh, what the hell? Wait, is this it? What's going on here? Now it's showing it's on public radio. Maybe this isn't it, but I think it is. I gotta see if this guy wants to talk to me. Spam, egg, and cheese toasty. That is giving UK vibes. You said you were Gloucestershire, right? Yep.
And that's
delicious.
what we're working with now. It's become so much more important than just.
Yeah, actually, I don't know what happened, but this I think was the podcast I was talking about. I'm gonna see if this guy will come on my show. Actually. Oh, sorry.
Yes, that's what we're working with now. It's become so much more important than just, we're trying to protect the environment. It's like, no, we're trying to protect, things like Yellowstone and Yosemite and the sequoias occur nowhere else on Earth. You protect the things that are unique and special, the crown jewels, and in both a biological way and as well as a anthropocentric way. This has now become a river with global historic significance because this story is going to play out in the next 18 months. Fantastic.
Really cool guy. I've saved his Joe Rogan appearance, his recent one. Chad deleted your comment? Which comment? I didn't see it. It probably got deleted before it came in on my end. I don't know. You probably said some word that made it auto-delete. But yeah, before I go, any questions, any concerns? I have some podcast episodes in the tank, which I'm going to edit. Please like the video. Hopefully I'll be back. I got some things going on. I got some videos in the works, and hopefully I can get back on it now. Yeah, follow me on Twitter. Any questions before we go? I know I said it, but I gotta wait now. Give people a moment to check. No, thanks for hanging out the whole time, Jude. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy your toasty. And I'm gonna go get my sandwich. Bacon, egg, and cheese on homemade sourdough. I feed my cat first. I gotta remember. I'm gonna make a note of John Kane. Let me see if he has Twitter. Oh, that's also a senator. Resistance Radio. You too, brother. Have a good night. Have a good day, night, whatever it is for you. I don't know if we got any Americans in now that it's 8 o'clock on the East Coast now. All right, looks like we're good. Have a good night, everybody. I'm glad we did not have to finish that crap. Yeah, great. I'm glad to be here for the Europeans. Probably best to do it at about noon, I guess. It's like half my audience is in North America, half of the people are in the US and Canada, and then a ton in Australia and Europe, mostly the UK. Yeah. I don't know if it's too advanced. I think it's just, that shit was disjointed and crazy. But this was better. I know it's a 20-minute video, but that was great. Almost midnight there in Australia, right? Yeah. Enjoy that. Have a good night. Get some sleep. Obviously, I did not sleep last night, but I'm gonna go get some breakfast. I'm gonna go finish off my day. Good night, everybody, or good day.